They won 34-0 over Pocahontas. They finish the regular season unbeaten and win the district title with the win. They'll host a first-round playoff game on Friday, taking on Mount Ayr. Manson Northwest Webster a winner over St. Edmund 36-0. Quarterback Austin Anlicker the story for Manson Northwest Webster, 3 total touchdowns in the game. For a complete list of the area playoff qualifiers and a look at their matchup on Friday, go to our website at yourfortdodge.com. For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Partial sunshine develops here this afternoon with a high in the upper 30s. Winds out of the northwest to 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight, a chance for some snow showers, cloudy skies, a low near 23. By Tuesday, mostly sunny, high around 41 degrees. Wednesday, slight chance for snow early, mixing with rain late and cloudy skies, a high around 37. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 36.
It's been a tough season for many farmers. As a leading crop insurance provider, RCIS stands by your side, come rain or shine. We're focused on fast and accurate claims service with claims professionals who understand crops, conditions, and marketing concerns in your area. When it comes to helping you weather the storm, we've got this. Ask your crop insurance agent about RCIS or visit rcis.com today. RCIS is an equal opportunity provider.
Farming. It's genetics. It's what you are, who you are, what you're made of. It's agronomy, local knowledge of your land and having the tools to put the right product in the right place. It's built on service, with trust, grit, and determination. Because what it takes to make the best product is a lot like what it takes to make a farmer. Golden Harvest, rooted in genetics, agronomy, and service. Talk to your local Golden Harvest Seed Advisor or visit goldenharvestseeds.com.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
And I'm here to bring you the truth. In Fort Dodge, Iowa, and the surrounding area. Joining me in this effort is Pastor Austin Hill of the First Presbyterian Church. And I welcome you again, Pastor.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
You have all the old great jackets. I mean, that is not a Marlboro Man jacket. I don't know it. You might be too young to remember what a Marlboro Man.
Well, it's kind of like a Robert Redford look too, I think.
Totally you pull it
So,
off.
well, thank
The
you.
jacket pulls it off.
Well, we're in that time of year where I wear a jacket all the time.
Yeah, well, you got to. Growing up in Southern California.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I never, even when I'm sitting in the heat, I never totally warm up, and so I just keep my jackets on basically from now until about March.
Well, where you live, there's low humidity and real heat.
Yeah.
Here it's, well, the weather is never good at Iowa. We've always, everybody who grew up in Iowa like I did and chose to stay here, but we will candidly admit that the weather is always terrible. It just always sucks.
It's always a good conversation starter.
It is. Oh, yeah. I grew up that way. That's the way we start a conversation out. Well, that's a hell of a weather situation. What about that weather or anything like that?
Exactly. There's always something to talk about with that.
Pastor Hill and I have been trying to talk about truth, objective truth. And, of course, my definition of objective truth all my life, and including today, is there is such a thing as objective truth. And it comes from outside human beings. Human beings get into their little fervid thinking patterns, and all of a sudden they think, my emotions are the truth. You hear that all the time. My truth, or we demand the right to define racism on our own terms. Well, that's not anywhere near the truth. It's not anywhere near defining racism. It's kind of an immature, silly thing to say by silly people, really. And I hope most of the people saying that are young activists who are running around out in the street screaming with their fists in the air, so I hope they grow out of it. Get credit cards in a garage like the rest of us. Years ago, there was a group called Occupy Iowa City. It was Occupy Wall Street. These little Occupy things were breaking out all over.
Yeah.
And I got a hold of some people down in Iowa City that I knew, and I got a hold of one of the leaders of Occupy Iowa City, and I talked with him. He was an intelligent young man, and he told me he had a bachelor's degree and couldn't get a job. So that was the reason he was in Occupy Iowa City.
Okay.
So I wanted to talk to him again a week or two later, and he told me he couldn't be on because he got shot. And Occupy Iowa City kind of went by the wayside. The last thing anybody.
That's
If you
great.
get on the radio and you say, "I got a college degree, but I can't get a job," somebody's going to hear it.
Yeah, someone's gonna listen.
And somebody's going to say, "I'm going to shut that guy up. I'm going to give him a job."
There you go. Yeah.
Those jobs don't have time to go to Washington.
Or to be advocates or something like that. Yeah.
Once again, we're faced with a situation, and this is part of our work. A former state representative by the name of Chip Baltimore. And Chip Baltimore's a nice guy. He's an attorney. He lives down in Boone.
Mm-hmm.
He's a lobbyist now for a large telecom company. I'm talking Mediacom.
Okay.
I mean, he's representing a group called the Taxpayer Protection Agency.
Sure.
But in other words, we're going to fight taxes no matter where they are. You know, it's a Republican-aligned group. And Chip is a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
Was a Republican when he was down in Des Moines representing his area. And again, I accept that. But an advocate's role is not to tell the truth. We must understand that. There is a Facebook page under that says "No to Government Internet."
Okay.
That's the way they're portraying it, because people have a deep, almost primordial suspicion of government.
Mm-hmm.
Our founding fathers had a suspicion of government.
Yeah.
And that's what our country was built on.
Yeah.
And I accept all that. What I don't really, what I think needs to be addressed is that a lobbyist is a lobbyist is a lobbyist. An advocate is an advocate is an advocate, and they're here to scare us.
Mm-hmm.
They're here to scare us about government internet. Now, later on today, I'll talk with Dr. Dean Stanley in the Congress, and we'll talk about a public utility. Now, a public utility is something that every city needs that the private sector cannot produce.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this case, Mediacom is producing a service that a lot of people are unhappy with. The city has tried to address the numerous complaints that they have had.
Yeah.
By looking at a city-owned broadband option.
Mm-hmm.
Well, of course, there's people that come out of the woodwork talking about government internet, and like government was going to be in their house and spy on you or something. Just crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So what should be, again, politicians do this all the time.
Yeah.
It's political speech, and it doesn't matter if it's Mitch McConnell or a Democrat of some kind. I mean, I like Elizabeth Warren, but she's tap dancing all over the Medicare plan.
Mm-hmm.
She wants Medicare for all, but apparently she's not going to tell us how it's going to be paid for.
Yeah.
Come on,
Yeah. Because there's no way to say that without mentioning an increase in tax.
Big win for the middle class, by the way.
Yeah.
So we're trying to fight through a forest of BS here.
Uh-huh.
Chip's scare tactics have worked with some people.
Mm-hmm.
Just raise the specter of government, and some people go bananas. Now, I would like to point out again, and it's all over the internet. What did the government ever do that worked? If you really want to see something screwed up, get the government involved. And I always say to them, well, there was World War II.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Small thing in history
Small
there.
little thing there. Yeah. Government was behind an effort to find a cure for polio. Polio, when I was a little boy, was a terrible disease. All the parents in the neighborhood were scared to death of it.
Mm-hmm.
There was, yes, government-sponsored research that helped us overcome that terrible plague.
Yeah.
Now, there's hardly any cases of polio in our country among young people.
Mm-hmm.
We have police and fire; they may have contributed. We have public education. Can you read and write? It's because of government.
Exactly.
In most cases.
Yeah. Well, and I've even seen this. I've got a private pilot's license, and there's been big discussion about privatizing air traffic control and all over the country. And I'm just amazed at how actually efficient that whole system is. It's another government program, and even just flying, a tiny little airplane, a little four-seater going 115 miles an hour, and how this whole system works to keep pilots safe, people in all sizes of airplanes, and people in air traffic control who are monitoring you and your safety and in storms and bad weather. And there's a fear. It's the same kind of thing. I read it on forums. People, they don't want air traffic control watching what they're doing. And in the times I've been flying, it's been nothing but supportive. Even times where I was maybe flying in weather minimums that I probably shouldn't have been flying in Des Moines, for example, was nothing but helpful. And I think it's that same kind of perception that there's just this distrust of any kind of governmental agency, and so I've seen it even just in flying, which is kind of unrelated.
To point out, this is city-owned broadband we're talking.
Yeah.
I mean, to my knowledge, the IRS and the CIA are not involved.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Matt Bemerick and David Feerick and the council people and the staff. They're our friends and neighbors for the most part.
Yeah, and I think, and it's a really helpful point to bring up. And one of the things that I really love about our community is that it's while it's big enough that we have lots of resources, it's also small enough that we can get to know our community leaders, and they are our neighbors. They're people that our kids go to school with their kids, and we work together, and there is access there. And so I think it's a tremendous opportunity that we have to be able to work alongside our community leaders and to trust them. That doesn't mean we don't ever question what they're doing, but if it's something, just because it's an initiative that our community leaders are looking at, I don't think our default should be mistrust.
Well, a little distrust is fine.
Sure.
Self-preservation requires it.
Yeah.
But the way that Christianity was beaten to a pulp for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
from distrust.
Well, and I think this is very much the kind of the day and age that we are in, where because of the internet, because of fact checkers, and podcasts and YouTube, and all these different things. I mean, you almost want to throw your hands in the air, because if there are as many opinions as there are people out there, and it's all online nowadays. And it can be crippling to some degree.
That's my real point. There's so much suspicion already around city broadband, which plays right into the lobbyists' hands and the media companies' hand, that it's amazing. Everybody's freaked. Oh, the government!
Yeah.
Oh, they're going to come in, they're under my bed at night, or they're in the closet or something.
Well, and it doesn't...
Staging paranoia.
It doesn't help that telecommunications, companies, it does seem like they have a monopoly, and almost every one of us can tell you some story about internet not working and then having to take a half a day of vacation because, they come at some point in time between noon and 5 p.m. and they didn't get there, or they got there and they couldn't figure it out, and, it is pretty frustrating. And so I think there is a lot of fear there that... It's so it's not only the fact that we're talking about our local government being involved in this, but on top of that, it's an issue that there's already a lot of frustration and pain and mistrust or lack of trust about in the first place. So you combine those two things together, and I can see how people are getting upset about that. But I think it's just one more kind of sign of our just general lack of trust of authorities, of institutions, of the quote experts in their field. Anybody can be an expert nowadays. Why do I have to go to school and get a degree? I can just watch YouTube videos and learn what I need to learn.
Not the way it works, younger people. Of course, we do have Donald Trump as president, and I'm certainly glad that Donald Trump won over his opponent. It was the worst election I ever had to vote in. I couldn't vote for either of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And Mr. Trump has tapped into something. He has tapped into, if you say something loud enough and long enough, everybody will believe it, because people want to believe certain things.
Yeah.
And they want to believe Trump when he says, "Make America Great Again." They want to believe him when he says, "Hillary Clinton's no good," or "this one's no good," because they feel that these people don't have their best interests in mind, and they don't.
Well, and think about the amount of change and loss that has happened for many people in many communities in our country in the last 40 years. And that's a very real feeling that people can tap into for oftentimes for all the wrong reasons, for their own political gain or power. And that's not just something that Trump has done. You get people kind of on both sides of the party who do that, who, promise that, well, I'm going to turn things around, I'm going to make it better. And so at the same time, you can kind of look at all of this, all these different opinions out there and say, well, everyone's got to be corrupt. So I'm not going to trust anyone. If they're a politician, they obviously must be there for the wrong reasons. So I just won't trust any of them.
That's what Chip Baltimore and this lobbyist group are feeding into.
Yeah.
You can't trust government. You can't trust anything. Best stick with what you have.
Yeah.
Even though it's no good.
Yeah. Well, and that's in the church. You hear more and more about different pastors and scandals, and I think so often one of the primary reasons that people say they don't participate in a local church is because of their experience in a local church. And they'll say, well, sure, I believe in Jesus. I'm a spiritual person. I'm just not religious. I don't want to participate in a religious community. And yet, to be a follower of Jesus necessarily is something that impacts our relationships with others. We need to be in relationship with others, serving others, loving others, being humbled by our relationships with others, being willing to admit that we might be wrong at times. And when we forego that because of our bad experiences in faith communities, then we're missing, I think, a vital part of the Christian life. But more and more we get this sense that, well, I can't trust anyone, so I'll just stay at home. I'll YouTube or I'll listen to podcasts of whichever pastors I want to and pick and choose sermons on demand, just like Netflix and Hulu. And I'll listen to worship songs when I'm, driving to and from work, and that's my church. And then I'll just, try to be a good person wherever I go.
Well, here's something I wish wasn't true. I guess we're supposed to get snow in central Iowa here these next 2 days.
Yeah.
That sucks, but I don't know if we're supposed to get anything here or not. But what should be the response to this sort of attitude where there is no truth?
Well,
that's nihilism.
Yeah, completely. And we have a whole generation of that, especially when it comes to politics. And you were right. This last election, it felt like, I'm not going to come up with a good phrase for it, but, people felt like they were between a rock and a hard place. And, really no good option on either side. And for many of my friends, they've just identified that, well, this is just proof that being in a two-party system is broken, and we just need to change our entire political system. And others will say, well, this just is proof that, everyone sins, all these politicians are corrupt, and so who cares anyway? Why bother voting at all? It's worthless.
Yes.
And
immense cynicism.
But then you and I both know Ann Meyer, and she's in a position of political leadership, and we know her involvement in this community. We know her intent, and she's someone who I'm very thankful that she is involved in leading our community. And I think there are probably many people in politics, especially at the local level, who do share very similar ideals and commitment to serving their community. So I don't think the answer is doing nothing.
You can't give up.
Yeah, but so I think the answer is maybe doing some research about the people that we vote for, which I know is kind of a pain. That's some work. And to be honest, it often just feels easier to vote, right down your party line and to not have to think about it. But I guess in our day and age, that doesn't really do enough. And I think another response is, if the national political conversation is one that people don't want to get involved in, then find ways to get involved at the local level. Find some area where you can have input, where you can be excited about using your opportunity, your voice to give a vote. So if it isn't at the national level, then maybe look more at the local level or at the state level. But we do have an incredible privilege as citizens in the United States in that we can alter outcomes. I hope that we don't squander that in this time where it's so easy to just be jaded and cynical about everything.
Well, find something that you believe is good.
Yeah.
Good cause. Certainly, volunteering for the Webster County Cancer Association has got to be a good thing, or volunteer out at Almost Home, or any number of things.
We've got wonderful service clubs here in town, and they continue to see diminishing numbers just because just about any institution does anywhere, and those are some wonderful places that are making real impacts here in town. I know that many of our churches are as well, and it might be overwhelming because there might be all these different things, and how do you get involved in any of them? But there are good people doing good, life-changing, community-transforming work who are in positions of authority or leadership right here in Fort Dodge.
All right, Pastor Austin Hill is our guest. We'll be back.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
Do you ever get tired of watching bad things happen to people?
Sticking up for you when no one else will.
Stu 29. We'll be back with Pastor Hill after this.
Don't wanna discuss it. Think it's time for a change. Disgusted, start thinking that I'm strange. The kids are going to ground, get some heavy rest. Never have to worry about what is worst or what is best. Get it? Oh, domino.
I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
Time to throw the birdseed.
Watch out for the seagulls! Oh, my head!
Are you okay?
United Healthcare helps connect you to care whenever you need it. Like video chatting with a doctor right from your phone.
So I don't need stitches?
Nope. Just put some antibiotic cream on it.
Great. Thank you, doctor.
United Healthcare. Health plan benefits may vary.
Connect to this radio station from all across the country. Take us to the gym, shopping. How about a road trip? Listen to us now on the free iHeartRadio app. You'll never miss a moment with your favorite radio station. Download the free iHeartRadio app and search for this station so we can go wherever you want us to.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News Update, I'm Rob Jones. A Webster City man who was arrested in Hancock County for a stolen gun last year has now been given a federal prison sentence. 26-year-old Eric Dunn was stopped December 17th of last year in Hancock County. During the traffic stop, officers found 2 loaded handguns behind the driver's seat, one of which was reported stolen. Dunn recently pleaded guilty to a charge of being a felon in possession of a firearm. He was sentenced to a 7-year prison term that will be followed by 3 years of supervised release. Democratic 4th District congressional candidate J.D. Scholten has announced the second leg of his Don't Forget About Us tour. During the tour, Scholten will hold town hall meetings in towns with populations of under 1,000 people around the 4th District. Scholten announced that he will be making several stops in the local area. Those stops will be today, the first at the VFW Post 5240 in Dakota City at 5 p.m., and then a 7:15 start for an event at the Lehigh Community Center. Tomorrow, he will hold 2 additional meetings, one in Pomeroy at 501 Park Avenue starting at 5 p.m., and then one at the Center in Early at 7 p.m. In high school football from Friday, the Fort Dodge Dodgers a winner, 21-17 over Marshalltown. Dodgers now 6-3 on the year. With the win, they punched their ticket to the playoffs. The Dodgers trailed 3-0 after fumbling the opening kickoff. They would lead 14-3 at the half, thanks to a pair of touchdowns in the second quarter. In the second half, they would lead the game 14-10 when this happened.
Marshalltown with the ball here. They throw it. It's intercepted. Intercepted by Halligan. He's going to take it to the house. Touchdown, Dodgers, Shane Halligan. He's got a reservation for 6, and the Dodgers have a 2-score lead.
With the win, Coach Matt Miller becomes the all-time winningest coach in Dodger football history. The Dodgers now are in the playoffs. They'll play Friday night at Cedar Rapids Kennedy. The South Central Calhoun Titans a winner on 105-9 to Beach. They won 34-0 over Pocahontas. They finish the regular season unbeaten and win the district title with the win. They'll host a first-round playoff game on Friday, taking on Mount Ayr. Manson Northwest Webster a winner over St. Edmund 36-0. Quarterback Austin Anlicker the story for Manson Northwest Webster, 3 total touchdowns in the game. For a complete list of the area playoff qualifiers and a look at their matchup on Friday, go to our website at yourfortdodge.com. For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. December corn down 2 3/4 at $3.84. March down 3 at $3.94.5. May down 2 1/2 at $4.01.5. July down 2 1/4 at $4.07.5. November soybeans up 1/2 penny at $9.20 3/4. January up 1 penny at $9.35.5. March up 1 penny at $9.47 3/4. May up 1 1/4 at $9.58 3/4. December wheat closed down 6 cents at $5.11 3/4. Soybean meal up 70 cents a ton at $3.04. October live cattle up 90 cents to close at $112.87. December up 52 at $116.60. October feeders down 30 cents at $145.40. November up 35 at $145.72. December lean hogs closed up 72 cents at $65.65. February up 62 at $73.97. I'm Dwayne Murley.
Have the talk of the lifetime with the ones you love and make the difference of a lifetime.
Grandma, this card asks, what's your favorite family tradition?
Christmas would be my favorite. You know how we use the special tablecloth and all the fancy dishes?
And those cookies you always make.
Should we whip up a batch and bake some together now?
Sharing stories and memories with those who matter most isn't just important today, it will be especially significant when it's time to honor a life lived. Contact Gunderson Funeral Home to learn more about having the talk of a lifetime.
Are you almost 65 years old? Time flies, doesn't it?
Well, Medicare enrollment is coming up, and you have some decisions to make. The problem? It can be totally confusing. Medicare Part A and Part B, Medigap Plan F versus Plan G. The alternatives practically run the alphabet. Pick the wrong thing, and you may pay more than you have to. Relax. Call eHealth. We have over 20 years of insurance experience and offer Medicare supplement plans from several of the largest insurance companies. Our licensed insurance agents are well equipped to offer solutions that may maximize your savings. We can help you with questions about coverage for your doctor, pharmacy, hospital, medical care, and prescription drug costs. We can also help you check if dental, vision, and hearing coverage are available. So, you can make a big fat guess or call eHealth now for a free consultation. There's no obligation to enroll, so call now. 800-MEDIGAP. 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 This is an insurance ad for eHealth, a licensed insurance agency not affiliated with Medicare or any government agency. This ad is not for Minnesota or Texas consumers.
Blue Ribbon, Pelham Waters, your water pro since 1949.
Who would have thought there'd be entire aisles devoted to bottled water, and that people would buy more water than pop? I'm Brian with Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters here in Fort Dodge. Spring water, drinking water, mineral water. There's so many choices, and we're proud to offer you them all. From our own refreshingly pure drinking water to ultra-pure Mountain Valley spring water, Blue Ribbon Pelham's is your complete water store.
Bring on more acres with the all-new Lexion 8000 and 7000 series combines at Ziegler Ag Equipment. These machines were built to cut through acres with an expanded capacity system for 10% more throughput and the industry's largest grain tank with faster unloading speeds. And optimize your cutting and feeding performance with the right header for the job, like the new Convio Flex Draper from Kloss, offering more visibility, more simplicity, and more efficiency. Ask your Ziegler sales rep for more information, because you can't put more hours in the day, but you can put in more acres.
Michael Devine, the Doctor of Truth.
Does anyone have anything they'd like to confess?
At AM 1400 KVFD.
Perhaps he is truth incarnate. And yes, he did text me to say that.
There you go. Well, as the pastor in the room, I will say Jesus is the only one who is truth incarnate. But but I can go with you there. A little bit, yeah, but not all the way. Jesus ultimately is the only one. I feel like it's my obligation to say that.
What would Jesus say about lobbyists, I wonder?
That's a good question. I do think.
I think I'll ask Chip Baltimore that on Wednesday. Ladies and gentlemen, Chip Baltimore will be here on Wednesday. And again, Chip's a good guy, but boy, are we going to have an argument. We'll be on about 3 o'clock.
I do think Jesus definitely does advocate for people, and people who especially did not have other advocates, and that is something we are called as Christians to do explicitly for orphans and widows. For the strangers, for the poor and the needy. Jesus talks a lot about that. Paul and James and John, all New Testament letter writers, talk about those same kinds of things. I don't know if we would, count lobbyists necessarily in that same.
There's all kinds of areas. I sold cars for years,
and
I was good at it. I didn't always tell the truth.
Because there's an agenda.
Oh, no, I can't take another dime. Well, I had a few hundred I could
yeah.
deal with, but I'm going to tell them I don't have any more room.
Yeah, I know. I mean, and that's a tough thing. But I do think in the midst of that, still, one of the ways that we discern truth, especially as Christians, we need to believe this. We discern truth together in community. So I don't.
Yeah, I think a vote would do that. I think.
Yeah, well, so I can't go to our church and say, God has revealed Himself to me from on high,
Go ahead and try that.
and God says,
See how that works out.
yeah, especially and say, God says that I need a lake house, and so we've got a lake house fund that we're going to start collecting for.
Here we go.
And
I know a couple of your parishioners that say, wait, right.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, it could be me if I came to church that way.
Well, there are pastors. Creflo Dollar is one. He's most famous for saying his Gulfstream jet that he had was not fast enough and that they could serve the Lord more effectively if they had a faster, bigger Gulfstream. And they were able to raise the money for that. And
some of those TV evangelists are wealthy beyond measure.
yeah. And I guess, I'm not going to call out TV evangelists as a whole, but I think it's instances like that remind us that we need to discern truth together. There've got to be people that we have placed in our lives, in our churches, who have the space to disagree with us, to call BS when they need to. And that can be painful sometimes because that makes the political process within a church or any sort of organization a lot more slow because you've got to work toward consensus. You might not always get it, but you've got to kind of go with the slowest people in the group to move forward, and sometimes that can be reasons that the churches don't adapt maybe in as timely of a fashion as they need to. But I think that also prevents churches from just following what one person does or says blindly, which is one of the big reasons that so many people don't trust institutions, because we've seen so many examples of when they've failed.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. If we really want to, well, let me say this. Scientists use the scientific method.
Mm-hmm.
It's essentially investigating, finding out, okay, this little segment, this little part is true. The next one, this little part is not true, so we're going to discard it. But we have this truth over here.
Yeah.
And then we're going to keep going until all these parts come together and we find the solution to this problem.
Yeah.
Because now we have a bundle of truth.
Exactly.
We have researched it over a long, long time, and we have just, it's kind of like what you were saying. We have to come together around the idea of what is true.
Yeah. And then I think the challenge, though, is that we have more scientists today, I think, than probably any other time in human history who follow the scientific method, who have peer-reviewed journal articles, and yet we still don't have consensus on things like climate change, or heck, how about whether the Earth is round? We've got flat earthers, which is just astounding to me that we have people in the 21st century who are connected to the rest of civilization and they still believe that the Earth is flat.
Yes. Well, there are people, and there are sociologists who have told us that we need to pay as taxpayers for transgender reassignment surgery, or we'll be morally culpable when the confused person jumps off the building. Now, I don't know if that's true. That sounds like advocacy journalism or advocacy research, which is something entirely different.
Mm-hmm.
The Democrats will get all over that.
Well,
and the Republicans will do the same thing.
Sure.
I mean, when describing the free market, you think they're describing, a profound,
holy scriptures or something.
Really, they've discovered some spiritual and psychological insight that's just causing their eyes to get that 1,000-yard look. Oh, the free market. It's crazy. It really is.
Well, it's really interesting. My dad, who's been on this show before, he's a physicist, and he's 66 now, so he's thinking about retirement, and he's a vice president at General Atomics, working on fusion energy research, and he's shared with me that as he's working now with primarily people who are younger than him, because he's been in the field of physics for about as long as I've been alive. And at 35 now, I know there are peers of mine who are now also in the scientific community with PhDs themselves. So my dad has voiced frustration in that many of these young physicists want to do or try some of the same research that they did like 30 years ago. And, they still have all those articles that have been published that are in these journals and whatnot that have their findings and have basically demonstrated, well, we tried this and here's what we found and here's why it didn't work, so we're going to keep going and try something else. Well, so now there's a new generation of physicists wanting to try some of the very same things that my dad and his colleagues were doing 30 years ago. And my dad says, well, let me tell you why it didn't work when we did it. And they say, well, we still want to figure it out. We want to find it out on our own. And so, here they are redoing some of the same kinds of research. And And that probably says something about the human condition.
It does. I mean, you're not going to accept something like that on faith.
Yeah.
Or nearly. I'm okay with that. For somebody to discover it on their own.
Sure.
You know, it can't be frustrating. It's like, you don't believe me or what?
Uh-huh.
You know, but by the same token, people have to discover certain things by themselves.
Yeah.
Even, you know, and I resisted a couple of times. I was just like, I told you so.
Yeah.
But not always successful.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think we all have that temptation. But so I go back to the church, and it's really fascinating to me. Right now, we're going through the book of 1 John. It's a letter that was written probably around the end of the first century, maybe somewhere between about 85 A.D. To about 110, somewhere in there. And if you kind of believe the traditional view, it would have been the Apostle John who wrote this letter, probably to the church in Ephesus, which is in modern-day Turkey, kind of on the west coast of Turkey. And here we are. I mean, we're less than 100 years after Jesus died and rose again. So in that first 100 years, and already these churches are filled with division. They're filled with infighting. They're filled with people saying who's in, who's out, who's got the real corner on faith and who doesn't. And these church leaders, like John or Paul in other instances, are having to write and kind of correct things and to say, essentially, here's what the core of the gospel really is. And so it's just fascinating to me that from its very beginning, I mean, in those first 2 generations of Christians, people already were fighting with each other. They were already disagreeing about what the Christian faith was or about what parts of it were important and what parts weren't. That's fascinating to me. Now, I guess I think there's a part of me that then says we probably won't ever get this figured out until Christ returns.
That's right.
But again, then the temptation is to just throw our hands in the air and say, well, then who really cares? But I think the fact that these letters exist in the New Testament is proof that they do matter and that correctness matters. Truth matters. We should defend it. We should do so lovingly. We should. We don't have to part ways with people we disagree with, but we should stand up for what we think the truth is, and we should be able to defend that. But we should do it with humility and to recognize that we might be wrong, which sometimes is lacking in some of these New Testament books. I mean, you hear people saying that anyone who disagrees with me is an antichrist. Yeah. That's we're not making things boring here as we tell the truth.
Well, it's you really have to have patience and follow your and try to understand that you're going to have prejudices.
Yeah.
That's a daily battle that I fight.
Yeah.
Sometimes I cut loose and say, this is opinion, but here's the truth.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's part of this recognition is that in this day and age where it seems like everyone has their own personal truth, and I do think we need to resist that.
Personal, I love that.
We need to resist that because I look at Jesus as the ultimate source of truth. But I think we also can't avoid the fact that we all do come to truth with our own personal experience, our personal biases and opinions. And every one of us, we cannot avoid our own context, our own kind of understanding of reality. And that has to necessarily impact our view of the truth.
Yeah, there was a piece in the Fort Dodge Messenger, I think in the Des Moines Register as well, by a young woman who said, she was a minority young woman, and she said, essentially, we can define racism on our own terms. That's it. Our terms are real, and everything else is baloney. There may be some bias in that statement, I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. Well,
I think she's looking to blame somebody.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be bias on both sides. And we've talked a little bit about this in the past, talking about reparations and things like that. But myself, as a Caucasian American, my first inclination is to say, well, I'm not overtly racist in my actions. I'm not saying, mean things about people of color. I try to say the right things and treat people correctly and with dignity.
I try to treat a man, no matter what ethnic background he is, as a man.
Sure.
As another man.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to sit here community.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say, well, as a white person, Charles.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and that's something that that where I've maybe learned a little bit from black brothers and sisters who I have had some conversations with. I think as a white person, I have the luxury of not thinking about race because I'm kind of in the predominant race, and so that's an interesting point that kind of gives me pause. Well, I guess I want to I want to elevate the truth kind of in both sides of this perspective, because I think there are true, valuable things.
But I have a question for you. Are you capable of elevating the truth from both sides? The point I was trying to make earlier.
Sure.
About treating a man like a man is sometimes I'll say this was a failure by this black person. This was, and I will say this again. I mean, there seems to be a code of silence in our black community that prevents people from cooperating with police, even when there are shootings in town.
Sure.
And that's very frustrating, and it's wrong.
Yeah. Well, and I guess I would be very curious to hear from people who are willing to talk to that, from people who are part of our black community. I guess without kind of putting them on the spot, and that's hard, when you're asking one person to kind of speak on behalf of their whole ethnicity or of an entire community. But I would want to hear from people, I guess give them a chance to speak to that in their own words. And maybe you have had those conversations with people on the show before, but there must be something going on there that I don't understand. I think a lot can be accomplished if we start our conversations and our relationships with people with a posture of curiosity. As opposed to assuming I know everything there is to know about someone or about a situation, if I can go into a situation with a genuine curiosity, a sense of, help me understand this perspective. That doesn't mean I have to ultimately agree with it, but maybe I can find some point of connection there. And I look at the conversations that Father Patrick Boehm and I had, and I loved those conversations because I think we both were willing to learn from one another. Now, I do believe there are distinct differences between his theology and mine, which is why I'm not a Roman Catholic and why he's not a Presbyterian. But at the same time, those were profoundly beneficial conversations that he and I had, at the very least for one another, for each of us. And I think that was because we approached them with a spirit of curiosity and willing to kind of learn the truth from the other's perspective.
And if you learn the truth and by your moral guide it's wrong or racist or full of lies, what is your next move?
Well, I think we still are called to be in relationship with those people who are in the wrong. Now, I think we also need to have boundaries to protect others and protect ourselves. But Scripture's mandate is that we are to love our enemies, to continue praying for them. Now that doesn't necessarily mean this person has to become your best friend. But what I've found, even in the PCUSA, the Presbyterian denomination I'm a part of, that it's often the people who I've disagreed with throughout the years, but have still been in relationship with, that I've felt profoundly loved and cared for and invested in by people who I kind of would have written off, except for the fact that I was in a denomination where we worked together. And now some might say that that's been kind of theological drift on my part.
A little bit there. I was gonna ask you, do you as a Christian minister have an obligation to move beyond praying for people who you believe are lying or are racist, and say you're a liar and a racist, or I'll put it
Sure.
a little more gentle.
Yeah.
I don't think you're factually correct. I believe you may have hidden bias or something like that.
Yeah. I think there are opportunities for that. And now the hard part is, in our day and age, we so immediately just go to our own lines, right? And we do it on Facebook and whatever else. And I heard a phrase that is a really intriguing one to me that I think could be a helpful one, because I think we've all been there, where you're at a dinner party, you're out with 7 or 8 people, and someone just says something that is so outlandish, so factually incorrect, that you don't even know where to begin with that. And here you are, you're at Applebee's or something, and there's 6 or 7 of you there, and you don't want to be that guy that's gonna like get up on a soapbox, on that Friday night. But you also you can't let that statement stay there unchallenged. And I heard on a podcast earlier from a pastor, Brian McLaren, who just gave me this helpful phrase. Something along the lines of, someone says something that is just flabbergasting to you, and a simple response of, wow, you and I see things very differently about that issue. And, you're not judging that person, you're not critiquing them, but you are at least pointing out that there might be another way of viewing the world on that issue. And maybe that's inviting to some conversation, and you're not just immediately calling that person an idiot. But you also aren't just letting that statement go by unchallenged.
What would you say to those who do jump up in restaurants and start screaming, "Get out of here, you Trump-supporting, MAGA hat-wearing blockhead"?
I don't really think that's helpful.
No, sir, it isn't. Pastor Austin Hill's been our guest. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Acre to acre, year to year, generation to generation. Nobody scrutinizes performance like you do. And acre to acre, year to year, generation to generation. The consistent performance of Asgrow brand soybeans helps to keep your profitability out in front. Offering a suite of tailored integrated solutions and 100% exclusive genetics for strong yield potential. Plus the Roundup Ready Extend crop system, the #1 soybean system planted by farmers, featuring XtendiMax herbicide with vapor grip technology to control more weeds than any other soybean system, so you can spray your fields with confidence. Ask your dealer how much further you can grow when Asgrow leads the way. XtendiMax herbicide with vapor grip technology is a restricted use pesticide. Always read and follow IRM where applicable, grain marketing, and all other stewardship practices and pesticide label directions. Check with your state pesticide regulatory agency for specific restrictions in your state.
I'm Dr. Jeff Gooden, and I treat pain with Salonpas. That's because practicing good medicine is my responsibility as a doctor. For back or joint pain, I agree with CDC guidance that recommends using topical pain relievers first, like Salonpas Patch Large. Salonpas is powerful, FDA approved to relieve debilitating moderate pain, yet non-addictive and gentle on the body. Look for the green Salonpas box in the pain relief aisle. Salonpas, it's good medicine.
This is Gary Rima, the voice of the UNI Panthers, and you can listen to exciting Panther sports right here on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400, KVFD, Fort Dodge.
Back-to-back blows to ISIS. I'm Pam Puso, Fox News. ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi wasn't the only member of the terror group killed over the weekend. Fox's Jennifer Griffin has more from the Pentagon.
The spokesman for ISIS was killed in an operation by U.S. forces immediately following the raid on Baghdadi's compound. Sources tell me Baghdadi's remains have already been buried at sea. Top Pentagon officials would not confirm the details. Here's what General Mark Milley just said.
Baghdadi was his remains were disposed of appropriately in accordance with our SOPs and in accordance with the law of armed conflict.
Milley said that 2 adult males were captured from the compound and removed to a secure location.
Video and photos from the raid are currently being declassified. The Pentagon says it's not prepared at this time to release them. He was a no-show on Capitol Hill. Former national security official Charles Kupperman defying a subpoena as part of the impeachment investigation.
Yet again, and even after a court decision affirming the right of Congress to proceed with this impeachment inquiry, the White House has obstructed the work of a co-equal branch of government.
House Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff.
President Trump continues to denounce the House impeachment inquiry as nothing more than a witch hunt, again insisting this morning that there was absolutely nothing wrong with that July 25th call that he had with the Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky.
Fox's John Roberts. Later this week, the House will vote on the next steps in the impeachment probe. A dozen fires are burning in California, but the Getty Fire in Los Angeles and the Kincaid Fire in Northern California are the 2 focal points for fire crews. Millions of residents are currently without power. Monday rally on Wall Street. The Dow up 131 points, the S&P adding 18 to reach an all-time high. America's listening to Fox News.
If you know the value of good machines, then it's high time we got together. We're Bailey Industrial, builders of metal and woodworking equipment. Hard-working machines for hard-working people. We stand behind our equipment and make sure our equipment stands behind you with the after-sales support you need to keep your shop running smoothly, which means making sure you have what you need when you need it, typically shipping within 72 hours or less. So whether you're a fabricator or manufacturer of metal or wood products, go to 920machine.com and we'll send you a catalog. Over 400 pages of what you love most, machines. So whatever you're looking to build or manufacture, do it with Bailey Industrial, the company you can trust to give you the equipment and service you can rely on. Because if it's worth doing right, it's only right to do it with Bailey. Get the Machine Lover's Dream catalog free by calling 920-MACHINE or go to 920machine.com. Get your free catalog while they last at 920machine.com.
During a speech in Chicago, President Trump lashes out at the city's top cop.
Speaking at the annual police chiefs conference, President Trump discussed Chicago's gang and gun violence, saying that the city deserves a police superintendent that sides with the people.
Not the criminals and the gang members that are here illegally, and not the stupid politicians that have no idea what the hell they're doing.
This after Johnson boycotted the chiefs' meeting over the president's policies. The superintendent also responding.
For comments like that to be made, it just lets me know that I'm doing the right thing and moving Chicago in the direction it should be going.
The president also signed an executive order to address crime and law enforcement training. In Chicago, Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
She's resigning from Congress, but not without a fight. A YouTube video was released a short time ago by Katie Hill, the California Democrat forced to step down in the face of an ethics investigation. Hill admitting to an inappropriate relationship with a campaign staffer after private photos were published by a conservative website and British tabloid.
This coordinated campaign carried out by the right-wing media and Republican opponents, enabling and perpetuating my husband's abuse by providing him a platform, is disgusting and unforgivable, and they will be held accountable.
Hill has denied accusations of an inappropriate relationship with a congressional aide. Another setback for British Prime Minister Boris Johnson.
His plan to have his Brexit deal approved and then have a snap general election on December 12th rejected by the Parliament. This after Brussels extended the deadline for Britain to leave the European Union to January 31st. It was supposed to happen later this week.
That's Fox's Greg Palcott in London. Johnson now supporting a plan put forth by other opposition parties. I'm Pam Puso. This is Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News update, I'm Rob Jones. A Webster City man who was arrested in Hancock County for a stolen gun last year has now been given a federal prison sentence. 26-year-old Eric Dunn was stopped December 17th of last year in Hancock County. During the traffic stop, officers found 2 loaded handguns behind the driver's seat, one of which was reported stolen. Dunn recently pleaded guilty to a charge of being a felon in possession of a firearm. He was sentenced to a 7-year prison term that will be followed by 3 years of supervised release. Democratic 4th District congressional candidate J.D. Scholten has announced the second leg of his Don't Forget About Us tour. During the tour, Scholten will hold town hall meetings in towns with populations of under 1,000 people around the 4th District. Scholten announced that he will be making several stops in the local area. Those stops will be today, the first at the VFW Post 5240 in Dakota City at 5 p.m., and then a 7:15 start for an event at the Lehigh Community Center. Tomorrow, he will hold 2 additional meetings, one in Pomeroy at 501 Park Avenue starting at 5 p.m., and then one at the Center in Early at 7 p.m. In high school football from Friday, the Fort Dodge Dodgers a winner, 21-17 over Marshalltown. Dodgers now 6-3 on the year. With the win, they punched their ticket to the playoffs. The Dodgers trailed 3-0 after fumbling the opening kickoff. They would lead 14-3 at the half. half thanks to a pair of touchdowns in the second quarter. In the second half, they would lead the game 14-10 when this happened.
Marshalltown with the ball here. They throw it. It's intercepted. Intercepted by Halligan. He's going to take it to the house. Touchdown, Dodgers. Shane Halligan. He's got a reservation for 6, and the Dodgers have a 2-score lead.
With the win, Coach Matt Miller becomes the all-time winningest coach in Dodger football history. The Dodgers now are in the playoffs. They'll play Friday night at Cedar Rapids Kennedy. The South Central Calhoun Titans a winner on 105-9 The Beach. They won 34-0 over Pocahontas. They finish the regular season unbeaten and win the district title with the win. They'll host a first-round playoff game on Friday, taking on Mount Ayr. Manson Northwest Webster a winner over St. Edmund 36-0. Quarterback Austin Anlicker the story for Manson Northwest Webster, 3 total touchdowns in the game. For a complete list of the area playoff qualifiers and a look at their matchup on Friday, go to our website at yourfortdodge.com. For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Highs level off around 39 this afternoon under cloudy skies. Winds out of the northwest 5 to 10 miles per hour. Chance for snow tonight. Lows level off around 23. Partly cloudy skies. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times again. Tomorrow, high temperatures reach up to 41. About an inch of snow tonight through Wednesday night. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 37.
Hi, I'm Raymond Denon, Vice President of Optima Tax Relief. If you're in debt to the IRS, there's a lot you need to know. Starting with rule number 1, don't mess with the IRS. They can garnish your paycheck, levy your bank accounts, even take your home or business. That's all true. But it's also true that there's a way out. It's called the Fresh Start Initiative. It's one of the biggest breaks the IRS has ever offered. If you qualify, you could save thousands, even tens of thousands. Nobody knows this program like us, the experts at Optima Tax Relief. We have an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau, and we've resolved over $500 million in tax debt for our clients. We'll stand between you and the IRS and fight to get you the best deal possible. Don't mess with the IRS. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, call Optima for a free consultation.
Call 800-386-9945. 800-386-9945. 800-386-9945.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Have the talk of the lifetime with the ones you love.
Grandma, this card asks, when did you get a TV and what was your favorite show?
I think around 1950, they had a Fort Dodge TV station that had a local barn dance show every Saturday night. Oh, honey, it was so much fun. They'd play instruments, we would sing and dance.
Sharing stories and memories with those who matter most isn't just important today, it will be especially significant when it's time to honor a life lived. Contact Gunderson Funeral Home to learn more about having the talk of a lifetime.
If you don't listen to him, you suck.
He's sneaky, but he's right.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice for Dodge. I'm Michael Devine. Of course, we're going to tell the truth, make it matter, and we're never going to be boring. We welcome to the program today Mr. Curtis Dean. Curtis, how are you?
I'm good, Mike. How are you?
And you're with what company now? You're a company of one, first of all, right?
I am a company of one, yes. I call that company of one Smart Source Consulting, but a lot of people just refer to it as Curtis's company. And I'm a consultant, and I'm based in Grimes, Iowa.
Now, yeah, again, I want to emphasize that you're one man running your own company with without a lot of other consultants and engineers and on and on and on, as opposed to some of the people that you've been up against here lately. Yes. What were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say my home office and the world headquarters is basically a spare bedroom in my house.
That's impressive. I like it.
Why, thank you. I try to keep it clean.
You have been consulting the city of Fort Dodge regarding broadband. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And what has been your experience with city-owned broadband services in the past?
Well, I have some personal experience because I actually got my career start in telecommunications in Spencer, Iowa. And in Spencer, I was first a volunteer advocate, citizen, who who advocated for a municipal telecommunications election there back in 1997. And a couple of years later, when the network was actually getting ready to be launched, I was fortunate enough to be hired to be the marketing and community relations person for Spencer Municipal Utilities. So I've been involved in the industry ever since then, first working at the Spencer Utilities for about 13 years. I then moved to Central Iowa and went to work for the Iowa Association of Municipal Utilities, which represents all of the city-owned utilities in the state of Iowa, including the telecommunications ones. And then 4.5 years ago, actually, I decided to do this as a full-time occupation as an independent consultant.
What is your education and work experience, please? Beyond consultancy?
Besides consultancy, 13 years at Spencer Municipal Utilities. Prior to that, I was in the radio business, Mike.
Oh, no.
Oh, please don't hold that against me.
No. I understand. You probably got food stamps then, huh?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, a lot of help from everyone. The education, I received my bachelor's from Buena Vista University, and I have a master's of public administration through the University of South Dakota.
Okay, good enough. Your name, and I have made reference here to a new Facebook page called Vote No on Government Internet, which is a specious title if I ever heard it in my life. Government Internet. Oh, my God, the government. Shades of the X-Files. Coming out of the woodwork. Yep. Space aliens, government agents. Oh, no. And we're just trying to get better Internet service here. That's all. And I would like to point out, ladies and gentlemen, that Mediacom appears to have hired a consulting firm, a lobbying firm, to scare the people of Fort Dodge into voting no on city-owned broadband. They would rather do that than improve their customer service or their internet service. Now, that's me talking, not Mr. Dean. I don't want to I don't want to give anyone the wrong impression that Mr. Dean endorses my comments. But do you know anything about this group, the Taxpayer Protection Group, or whatever they are?
Yeah, actually, I do. The TPA has been around for a number of years, and they're an organization that was founded to advocate for different positions, but most of those positions are against government being involved in certain types of activities.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years, they have pretty consistently worked in the background to try to fight efforts for municipal broadband utilities, not just in Iowa, but in other parts of the nation. And they really became active in Iowa here earlier this year when they hired a former Iowa lawmaker to be their principal contact. And since then, that person has been appearing at city council, utility board meetings, and other events across Iowa in communities that are evaluating their options for municipal telecom. Because there's more that are doing this right now than just Fort Dodge.
And that person, of course, is Chip Baltimore, an attorney from Boone and former state representative. And I'm supposed to speak with Chip next week. And I'm reminded that Chip Baltimore, after we were refused a casino license here for the second time, and it mysteriously appeared in Jefferson, that Chip Baltimore remarked how brave the Racing and Gaming Commission was to put this casino in Jefferson. So I'm going to ask Chip about that and his involvement in helping move the casino not to Fort Dodge, but over to Jefferson. So I don't know if Chip is really a friend of our area or not. But have you met Chip Baltimore?
Yes, actually. He and I have joked each other that because we end up going to a lot of the same meetings on different sides of the issue, that we should be carpooling to save everybody money.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've met several times, and I think we have a decent relationship. Again, we don't agree on many of these issues, but I have nothing against him as an individual.
There was a broadband feasibility study in 2018 in the city of Decorah, beautiful town, of course.
Yes.
And apparently your name is on it, and the study showed that broadband feasibility, at least in Decorah, would not be a good idea. And that has been pushed forward by the Taxpayer Protection Association, which I think is a little bit misnamed, but it's a lobbying group after all. Could you explain how this this worked its way into the conversation?
Yeah, well, I was involved kind of in the background with the Decorah study. Decorah's got a long history of, they've had 2 feasibility studies now. The first one was, in my own opinion, as a telecom professional, very poorly performed and did not really give city community leaders the information they needed to really determine whether a municipal system was a good idea or not. They did have a vote in 2015, which was approved by, I believe, 93% of the community. So they had the authorization from the voters to go out and explore. The first feasibility study, like I said, was pretty incomplete. And so what they did after several months of evaluation is they hired another firm called CCG Consulting. And CCG Consulting was hired to take a look at that first feasibility study, fill in the blanks from that first feasibility study, and also to help the city come up with some ideas about what their paths forward might be. CCG actually hired me for one little piece of it. My job was to work with the city and to try to identify people who would be willing to switch if the city were to build a network. Although the city had some survey data, they really wanted, before they would commit, they wanted to have a high percentage of people actually sign a pledge saying, if you build a network, I will switch services. So that was basically my task in Decorah. I coordinated that pledge card campaign over a series of weeks, but I was not involved in actually writing CCG's report, nor, in fact, had I actually read it until here a few days ago.
I bet it was a surprise to see.
Funny because mea culpa to me, right? I put on that Facebook page, I wasn't part of that report, and then, of course, they post a picture of the front page where my name is listed.
Correct.
And I think I was listed as a courtesy of the owner of CCG, who appreciated the work I did, but despite my name being on there, was not involved at all in writing that report, and like I said, had not actually read it until just a few days ago.
All right, we're talking with Mr. Curtis Dean. He is I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, but that's my bad.
Okay.
I should have, before I posted that, I should have realized that. So
we're talking with Mr. Curtis Dean. He is the sole owner and the sole employee of Smart Source Consulting in Grimes. How did you come to be involved with the Fort Dodge project?
Well, it actually came about because I was speaking at a event in Iowa City earlier this year, before the Iowa Municipal Finance Officers Association. And I was invited to speak there about what different communities in Iowa are doing to try to improve their broadband service. And so I moderated a panel that consisted of community representatives from Decorah, as well as Vinton, and I believe there was a person there from Asbury, Iowa, which is up by Dubuque.
Yeah.
And it was after that meeting that I was introduced to David Fierk, who was in attendance, and he said to me, our council has asked us to do some research into broadband. They budgeted some money for feasibility. What would your approach look like? So I spelled out the approach that we would take, and the city decided that that's the approach they wanted to take. And the approach is essentially what I call a phased feasibility, where we first try to identify what the market looks like and if people in the community are actually having the type of service that they feel they need. If we were to do that sort of work in a community where the providers are really doing a great job, then that would probably end the discussion right there. But in the case of Fort Dodge, we found a certain level of dissatisfaction there that has been revealed by comments and also the results of the survey. The approach that we took with the city was you do this pre-feasibility stage right now and decide what is the situation in Fort Dodge. And that also, in addition to identifying and giving citizens an opportunity to tell their stories and share their views, it also gives the city and potentially others an idea if there is an opportunity for someone, a different provider, public or private, to provide fiber optic service in Fort Dodge. if, again, approval and loyalty was high to existing providers, that would make it very tough for anybody to make a case that they could build a new network and start from zero and capture enough customers to be a viable system.
Is that what you found in Fort Dodge, or did you find something else in Fort Dodge?
Well, what we found so far, and again, the final report will be delivered to the council next week. So,
right.
But even the preliminary results that we delivered to the council back in August show a level of dissatisfaction among the people in the survey.
Curtis,
the existing private.
Curtis, would you repeat that? You broke up and we lost you during just.
Oh,
as
I'm
you
sorry.
That's not your fault. We lost you right as you were beginning to explain what you found in Fort Dodge.
Can I blame my internet connection?
No, but I'll blame mine.
Okay, there you go. We're even. When we reported to the council on a preliminary basis back in August, what we found at that time, based on some of the preliminary survey results, was that there was a pretty high level of dissatisfaction among Fort Dodge consumers in the existing providers that they have choices from. The two major large providers, the large cable company and the large telephone company, of course, covers by far the most of the citizens. There were a few people that had services from some other smaller providers, and actually their opinions about those smaller providers tended to be more positive. But overall, more people were negative about their experience than were positive. And so that preliminary information we presented to the council, and that was one of the reasons that they wanted that information, is to decide whether or not to put the referendum issue on the ballot, because if they were going to hold it in November and thus have it on an already existing election day in order to save money, they needed to know that by the end of August. So the preliminary results gave the council some comfort that placing it on the referendum on the ballot was a good move.
All right, we're talking again with Curtis Dean of Smart Source Consulting here at AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. How many towns have you worked with on projects like this in your career?
Directly, I've worked with about 6 or 7 on these types of studies. And indirectly, through my work both at Spencer Utilities and networking with my peers, but also through my work at the Iowa Association of Municipal Utilities, I've pretty much worked with all of the municipal telecom utilities in the state of Iowa, and we have quite a few. There are 26 right now that are cities that have city-owned telecommunications networks.
Now, of those who have their city-owned broadband, and I'm assuming that they moved to city-owned broadband after having another provider, of those cities, how many of them have been satisfied with the switch to city-owned broadband, and were the taxpayers put on the hook, so to speak, at some point after they went to city-owned broadband to pay for the service or the construction or the fiber optics, that sort of thing?
Well, I'll answer the second one first because it's easy. The answer is no. There haven't been any tax burdens placed on any of the taxpayers in any of the cities.
All right, Curtis, let me stop you right there. So you've been involved in 26 towns who switched to city broadband, and none of them, not one, found themselves with a tax burden on the citizens at a later date.
Correct.
All right. Thank you, sir.
I can't speak to what communities in other states have done because I haven't worked with them personally. Yeah,
I'm sure communities in other states, as has been quoted by the TPA, have failed. But I'm thinking that those are definitely minority cases. But I'm sorry. Go continue, please.
Oh, no, that's okay. So I've worked with all of those communities. The ones that I've worked with directly, especially with the consulting hat on here in the past 4.5 to 5 years, have been the cities of Charles City, New Hampton, Maquoketa, Pella. I did some work for the community of Adair in western Iowa. I'm doing a study similar to Fort Dodge is being done now in Montgomery County in southwest Iowa. and doing some work for the town of Tipton, Iowa. And, the phone rings every once in a while and somebody says, hey, can you come down and talk to our council or utility board about this? So it's kind of an ever-evolving space that I'm working in. I've also been involved in a couple of studies outside of the state of Iowa, Davis, California, and also one in Painesville, Ohio. But those I was kind of a subcontractor, and I was primarily doing some stakeholder interviews as part of that.
Well, as I recall, Davis, California is a suburb of Los Angeles, isn't it?
It is, and
they went to city-owned broadband.
They're talking about it.
Okay.
They have not done anything yet. Yeah, they were doing a feasibility study, and CCG Consulting, the same company that worked in Decorah, was working with them, and then CCG hired me to do some interviews one-on-one with some of the key business people, industry leaders, educational institutions, and that sort of thing.
Sure.
My understanding, Davis has not moved forward with that yet, although they are looking at a plan to at least provide enhanced fiber optic services in their central business district.
Getting back to your the 26 towns that you did work on here in Iowa, were there any major problems in those towns as a result of the construction of the telecom infrastructure? Did everything go to on as it should have? Were there any major problems, I should ask?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is every community is different, right? So most of these communities, quite frankly, are quite a bit smaller than Fort Dodge.
Right.
The only community in Iowa with an operational utility that's bigger than Fort Dodge is Cedar Falls, and they were one of the first. So we have communities ranging anywhere in population from 800 to 8,500 that are in the business today. Spencer being probably the third or fourth largest, Muscatine also being a larger community. And so smaller communities, because of the economies of scale with building a network, it's a little tougher for them.
Mm-hmm.
And also, because their marketplace is pretty restrained, as with most small towns, they don't grow as fast as larger towns. Their revenues don't grow as high over time. So for them, the payback on building a municipal utility might be longer than, say, a larger community where you have more people and you have the opportunity for growth through population growth and through new businesses and industries moving to town. But overall, if we look at the communities in Iowa that have municipal broadband, the take rates, in other words, the percentage of people in those communities that take services, one or more service from the city-owned system, those take rates average somewhere between 60 and 80%. Most of them are above 70%, and a couple of them are in the 80s and 90s, which means that in a competitive marketplace, going up against some of the same providers you have in Fort Dodge, those community-owned networks are winning based on competition. They're winning with
that's key,
rates
isn't
that
it?
are reasonable.
I mean,
yeah, it absolutely is.
What is a free market economy without competition? What is a free market economy? Then we have what's called a monopoly, and that's what Mediacom has in our town right now, a monopoly. So these voices out there that are telling us not to get a city-owned broadband are in favor of a monopoly of sorts. Mr. Curtis Dean is our guest, and I want to talk with you at a later date, Mr. Dean. We are running out of time here just a little bit. I do have one more question. Is it safe to say, or can you weigh in on this at all, that the smaller towns, like we had a little community of Lauraville just to the south here, 400 people, and they're getting fiber optic. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the areas around us are getting fiber optic. We seem to be in an internet hole here, I believe, as the city manager described.
You are.
I would like to... Mediacom denied that, by the way, at the first meeting I went to, that there's no such thing as a hole. Or they were surprised to hear it, I should say, that we were in a hole.
You're in a hole of community of people who have fiber all the way to their homes.
Okay, that's fine.
And I think what Mediacom argues is, we have plenty of fiber. And they do have a lot of fiber in their network. Actually, so does Frontier. It's just they're not choosing to use fiber optic as the final connection to your home, and that's where the constraint is on capacity, speed, reliability, et cetera.
Why? Why aren't they using fiber optic?
Well, it's essentially an economic decision.
Certainly is, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you got to remember that large companies like Frontier and Mediacom are not, they're in the business to produce profit.
Of course.
Just like any other for-profit business in the country.
That's right.
And so they have to be very careful about where they put their capital investments. And they're going to put those capital investments into things that will have a quick rate of return and in areas that will have a quick rate of return. That's why you see large phone companies, not necessarily Frontier because they've been kind of slow on this, but larger phone companies like, say, CenturyLink and Windstream, they're actually doing some fiber to the home. But they're doing it in fairly well-off metropolitan areas.
Mm-hmm.
I have fiber to the home from CenturyLink right where I'm sitting at my home office in Grimes, Iowa. 2 blocks north of me in Grimes, Iowa, you can't get 7 meg DSL from the same provider because they built my network 4 years ago that serves my house. The network to those other homes 2 blocks north, they built 6 years ago, and the economics flipped on them. And so it's a matter of dollars and cents. And I always tell people this, they're not good guys and bad guys here. It's just that the financial model that we operate telecommunications in this country does not permit many private companies, not all, but many, to make investments that take more than 10 years to recover.
Well,
they want their money back in a few years.
Now, this leads me to the very last question, I promise. Is it safe to say that Mediacom doesn't want to provide this service to Fort Dodge because they're making too much money, and they really don't care about towns like Lauraville or Gowrie or some of the smaller towns in our area? Those people can go ahead and get their own fiber optics if they want to. But because they couldn't go into Lauraville, for example, with a population of 400, with any expectation of making a turn on their investment. And Fort Dodge has worked out pretty well for them. So rather than invest money in customer service and improved internet service, they're willing to fight to keep us where we are. That last part was probably an opinion, Curtis.
Yeah, I won't. I'll let you have your own opinion. I certainly won't necessarily attach myself to that. But what I will tell you is there are private companies in the world that do take a longer-term view on returning their investments. And those companies that are out there serving communities like Cedar Rapids, that are planning to build services in Iowa City, Dubuque, Lincoln, Nebraska, and other communities in the Midwest, they are interested in bringing services to communities like, say, Fort Dodge, that they can demonstrate that there is a good market for it. And one of the goals of this study was not just to come up with some justification for the city to build a fiber network, but it was also to prove that there is indeed a market for somebody who can provide fast, affordable, reliable service with excellent customer care. And that's really what the study is going to help. Whether the city builds it or not is going to be partially up to the voters.
Well, I can't believe the state of Iowa did this, but they did give Mediacom a statewide franchise of sorts.
Yeah, that was part of a legislative effort a few years ago.
Yeah.
So there really is not a lot of local control, at least on that end. And actually, there's not a lot of regulatory hitches that any telecom provider needs to go through, whether it's state or federal.
Oh, absolutely. I was on the cable commission here in town. It was disbanded after, I left it some years before Mediacom got the franchise. But, I could see it coming, certainly. Everybody could, as a matter of fact.
Yeah.
I hope we can talk again about this subject after the feasibility report has been released. And from what I understand, it's going to be Monday at 5 o'clock over at City Hall during the council meeting, or prior to the council meeting. So our guest has been Mr. Curtis Dean of Smart Source Consulting. Thank you, sir, for being on the air with us.
Thank you, Mike. My pleasure. Have a great weekend.
You too. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge.
Michael Devine, standing for Medicare and Social Security. After a lifetime of work, you deserve it.
We are the land of the free because of the brave. Alpha Media and Graham Tire want to thank our local military men and women for their service. Our Wall of the Brave is currently displayed at Graham Tire of Fort Dodge. We invite you to stop out to Graham Tire and sign the wall as a show of support for our military. This special Veterans promotion is sponsored by Graham Tire of Fort Dodge, Farm Nutrients, Advanced Heating and Cooling, River Valley Winery and Orchards, the Co-op Bar and Grill, and Alpha Media Fort Dodge.
I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
Time to throw the bird seed.
Watch out for the seagulls!
Oh, my head! Are you okay?
United Healthcare helps connect you to care whenever you need it, like video chatting with a doctor right from your phone.
So I don't need stitches?
Nope, just put some antibiotic cream on it.
Great, thank you, doctor.
United Healthcare. Health plan benefits may vary.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Highs level off around 39 this afternoon under cloudy skies. Winds out of the northwest 5 to 10 miles per hour. Chance for snow tonight. Lows level off around 23. Partly cloudy skies. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times again. Tomorrow, high temperatures reach up to 41. About an inch of snow tonight through Wednesday night. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 36.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. December corn down 2 3/4 at $3.84. March down 3 at $3.94.5. May down 2 1/2 at $4.01.5. July down 2 1/4 at $4.07.5. November soybeans up 1/2 penny at $9.20 3/4. January up a penny at $9.35.5. March up a penny at $9.47 3/4. May up 1 1/4 at $9.58 3/4. December wheat closed down 6 cents at $5.11 3/4. Soybean meal up 70 cents a ton at $3.04. October live cattle up 90 cents to close at $112.87. December up 52 at $116.60. October feeders down 30 cents at $145.40. November up 35 at $145.72. December lean hogs closed up 72 cents at $65.65. February up 62 at $73.97. I'm Dwayne Murley.
Cutting down on food waste can mean tastier homemade foods. Hi, I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield. Here are some tips to reduce waste and add new flavors to your meals. Vegetable leaves add flavor and nutrition to meals. Chop up green carrot tops and add them to a salad. Keep the stems of herbs and use them to liven up your cooking. Cilantro leaves are often used in Mexican and Thai dishes, but their stems and roots can also be used for flavor. Parsley stems can be used the same way. Like herbs, the stalks of broccoli and cauliflower can be sliced thinly and added to the rest of the dish. Stale bread can be revived. You can turn stale bread into bread crumbs by using a food processor and then coat chicken, for example, with the crumbs before baking. You can also make croutons out of any kind of stale bread for crunch in a salad. Bruised fruit can be blended into smoothies, and you can make jam out of those fruits. Cheese and cheese rinds often get dry when it comes to the end of your cheese. They still have great flavor, so grate over a salad or pasta, and you can also add those ends to soups and stews. What about wine that's been open too long and tastes extra sour, kind of like vinegar? Don't pitch it. Use it in sauces. Before squeezing the juice out of limes, lemons, and any citrus fruit, consider the zest from the peeling by grating that into foods. You can even dehydrate citrus peels for added flavor in any dish. I'm Julie Harker with Healthy Living on Brownfield.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become 1 in a million.
Can
to this radio station from all across the country. Tickets to the gym, shopping. How about a road trip? Listen to us now on the free iHeartRadio app. You'll never miss a moment with your favorite radio station. Download the free iHeartRadio app and search for this station so we can go wherever you want us to.
Standing for Medicare and Social Security. After a lifetime of work, you deserve it. AM 1400 KVFD.
Good morning, good afternoon.
Now, I didn't ask this of Melvin Newsom the other day, because I think he's run for office more times than anybody in the history of the city. But you run a few times. How many times you run for something?
I believe this is my fifth time, I believe.
Fifth time?
Yeah.
So why are you running again?
I always feel that we need a change in our government. We need a change in our city council. Whether I win or lose, I enjoy running. I enjoy the thing behind it. I just feel I can do things for the people. But the main thing is I have to get elected. And of course, I've been defeated 4 or 5 times. But that doesn't stop me. I still come back. I still go to the council meetings, and I still, keep up with the government, what's going on in the city government. Also, if I feel something that I don't feel is right what the city's doing, I challenge them on it.
Yeah, anybody should.
And one of those issues was the houses, how they purchased the houses. If you all remember, at a council meeting, I had a piece of paper showing they were listing a house for $29,000, and end up selling it for $55,000. But part of that was for demolition. But my issue was that it was in a real estate guy for $29,000. You and I, we all know that when you're negotiating on a house, you can get it cheaper than that. Either $25,000 or $20,000, but Ford Dodge didn't do that, and that's what kind of upset me. And that's why I feel I will continue watching them how they do buy houses, but I just enjoy going down listening to the council meetings.
Well, one of the things that's in front of us now, as a matter of fact, is going to be covered at a city council meeting here in just a short time. Before the council meeting, there's a workshop on broadband. Now, if you've listened to me, and I know you do on occasion, you notice I'm in support of competition for Mediacom. I do not believe Mediacom has presented us with, good customer service or good service, period. We're in one of those internet holes where all the little towns around us has fiber optics that greatly increases the speed of internet. Right, the internet hole is for Dodge. We don't have fiber optics to our houses. We have fiber optics to some business, but we don't have them to our houses. Now, looking 5 years or 10 years into the future, we're going to become more and more internet dependent. It's going to be like a public utility. A public utility would be water or any of those other things that is heavily regulated. So I will ask you why, or what your position is as far as broadband in our city is.
Well, first of all, I am for competition too. If you all remember, I've been in retail for 60 years, and we always had competition. If we wanted to stay in business, you cater to your customers and you give them the best service you could give them, and you want them to talk about you so they come back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what business is. I mean, when I recently worked at J.C. Penney's, I was the watchman out there basically. And I used to have people come in, where's that guy that does the watches? Because it's repeat business that keeps us in business.
Right.
So I see with Mediacom, yes, I've had problems with Mediacom in the past, waiting that 4 hours. I have to agree with you.
That's pathetic, isn't it?
It is pathetic that you have to stop and put everything on hold for 4 hours. And like they say, they come if it's 8 to 12, they come at 12 o'clock.
A lot of times they do.
They do.
What other business does that, by the way? You can get a doctor's appointment with a specialist at the hospital, and I've done it a couple of times recently, and I'm into their office in 15 or 20 minutes. Now, this is a highly trained professional. I'm waiting 4 hours for a cable technician?
Well, I go to the VA, and there's a thing up here, if you're not serviced in 15 minutes of your appointment, come to the desk.
That's what I'm talking about. This is the 21st century, and they're still in the 80s.
Yes.
They're still in the 80s. So how do you feel about it?
Well, as I walk around being, running for city council, you hear a lot of people and they think that it's just another check for the city government. There's a lot of people out here still do not understand what the whole issue stands and how is it going to affect them. And I think we need more to even if I got on the council, I think we still need more feedback of how this is basically going to work and how it's going to affect me, you, and the people out here. And the other issues too is with competition. I mean, with Mediacom as high as the bills are, with this competition, I think it'll be great. But before I can say yes or no with the issue, I have to know all the facts, how it's going to hurt the senior citizens, how it's going to hurt middle class or whatever, to see just how things will work out for us.
You know any senior citizens personally?
Me. As you all know, I'm strictly for senior citizens. That's why I watch the water bill rates. And anything that's going to affect the senior citizens when the city council is going for a bill or something like that, I'm always on there because I am definitely for the senior citizen.
I am too.
You have to remember one thing, Mike. My pockets are empty.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, if we just got a small income come in or Social Security or something like that, every time the city taps something onto it, just like this recent assessments on our homes again, they're all going to go up again.
I understand that. What do you consider necessary city spending?
Here's what I'd like to see happen.
Okay.
I'd like to see property taxes frozen. There's many states throughout the United States have that now. When I lived in Illinois, just as I was leaving, they just went ahead and put that in at 65. Your taxes were froze. And I think if we had something like that here, that would just help our senior citizens.
So you would freeze property taxes for people 65 and older?
65 and older, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd love to see that happen.
I'd be in favor.
In fact, I went to one of the Ags and issues about it and mentioned to them down there at one time. They said it was in the back room. They were discussing it, but of course, you never hear anything more about it. But people have got to realize that, we only got so much money. And someday you're all going to be in our position, too. All of a sudden, that second check or first check's not coming in anymore. Oh, you got your Social Security or your pension or whatever your savings.
Sure.
And eventually, your savings start disappearing too. Mine are.
Do you distrust city government?
No. I think we need to keep a really watchful eye on them and make them accountable to what they're doing. I mean, that's why I wish more people would come to city council meeting and challenge the city council on what they're doing, and get it out in the open. To let them know what if they're going to raise the water rates or something. Let the people know. Get more information in the newspapers. Why we're doing this? Why we're doing that? We don't have that here. I mean, we do some, but not like it should be.
Okay. What do you think the city council and city government needs to be challenged on right now?
Excuse me.
Sure.
To be challenged on right now, I've been challenging them on that water rates. There's got to be some way that I feel that maybe we could have a special rate for senior citizens on water rates, electrical rates. You got to remember, if it wasn't for us senior citizens, the town wouldn't be the way it is today. Because you got to remember.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we got to remember we were 30, 40 years old, 20, 34, and we're the ones that helped build this city, with our taxes and different things like this. I think sometimes it's time, to pay us back, too, for what we started, where we are today, way the city of Fort Dodge is today.
Okay. All right. Richard Higgins is our guest. He's running for Ward 3 City Council seat held by Dave Flattery right now. This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. What's the first thing you would do if you were elected to the council?
The first thing I was going to do, and I would find ways.
So you'd be government then. Oh, I'd kind of like to see that. I'd start going to city council meetings and grill you.
Yeah, that's fine. But for one, right now, like I've just discussed with you earlier, I'd love to see a term limit.
Term limits?
Yes. I would love to see that like the mayor have 2 terms, 2-year council members have 4 terms, and 4-year council members have 2 terms. Because I feel we got to get new. There's a lot of people out there in the city of Fort Dodge are very smart individuals.
Sure.
But the trouble is, nobody wants to run because it's so hard to beat the incumbents. It's just like with Dave Flattery.
Well, there's other reasons they don't want to do this. I mean, a city council seat or the mayor's seat, that's a lot of work for the money. I mean, if you are the next council person for Ward 3, it's $4,800 a year. And that means you have to be at council meetings when they have them and be responsive to your constituents. That's a lot of work.
But I'd love it.
Oh, you would, yeah. But
I
a lot of people don't.
Well, then they shouldn't get into it.
They didn't. They don't.
But,
that's the reason that we don't have. I mean, we had Menke and Allstott without a challenge this year.
Yes, that's true. That's very true.
And I would point out one other thing. Terry Lutz was the mayor when I first got here. And Terry was on with me for about a year, and his term was up, and then Matt Bemrick was elected. Now, when Matt first started coming on the show, I mean, he remains an intelligent man, but he's not nearly as informed. He was not nearly as informed then as he is now. In other words, he's grown into office. I mean, when he first came on this program, if I'd ask him something, a lot of times he'd have to say, "I'll have to get back to you," and he would. Now, he just rattles off the answer.
No, man, he has improved very, very much.
I guess my point is that by keeping him in office, we have a better mayor now. I don't know who would have been, or he ran against Cindy.
I don't remember.
Yeah, she went over to Iowa Falls.
Oh, Cindy Litweiler.
Litweiler, thank you very much. Yeah, she was a nice person. But anyway, that would have to be part of the decision if we ever decide to go term limit.
Well, the thing is that look at our federal government. Look at our state government. Look who we got now. I mean, it's just. The way I feel is, if you got a term limit, sure, I could see two terms, okay? Mm-hmm. Because if you start something the first term, you want to continue, just like Dave has been doing, starting and then going to the next, to go run in again to keep going what he's got going, which I can understand that. But I also feel that we need. Like I again said, there's a lot of smart people out there. Maybe 4 years from now, look, we got a new candidate in there now we've never had before. That's running in Ward against Andy Fritz.
Yeah,
he's a new one, and I like the way he stepped up. And I think there is a lot of people out there would be more than happy to step up. Once they start coming to the council meeting and seeing what's going on, and then getting not aggravated but getting upset with what the city's doing, would start getting involved.
Well, we have council at large who are in 4 years.
Yes.
And ward councilman like you would be in 2 years. So 2 terms for council at large would be 8 years.
Right.
2 terms for ward councilman would be 4 years. Are you?
No. 4 years would be 2 terms, 4 years each.
You want
council large, like I said, council large, 2 terms, 8 years.
That's right.
And the 2-year terms, four terms, would be 8 years, and the mayor 8 years.
So what are you suggesting for ward councilman as far as term limits are concerned?
8. Well, before 2 years apiece, so it'd be 8 years.
So you'd put a ward councilman in for 4 years rather than 2.
No, they'd still run for a 2-year term, but be able to run 4 times.
Oh.
Where the council large would be 4 years and run 2 terms. See?
All right. Richard Higgins is our guest, AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. You've talked a lot about city street repair. We have had a lot of it. What is your feeling on street repair?
I think they're doing a very good job. And from the first time I started.
But you fought it like crazy.
I fought it like crazy. I want to know where local option sales tax.
You used to call me up on the phone, ticked off.
That's exactly right. But I always challenge where our local option sales tax is going. But no, I got to say, Matt and the council we've had on for the 4 years or so forth have really taken a hold in working these streets. No, I got to say, I've been to other cities. Our streets are not as bad as some of the other cities are. So they have done a great job.
Well, we started way in the hole, boy.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Yes. And the trouble is now with the retail, I mean, our local, I'm not up to date yet of how much, if we're down on local option sales tax or up, I don't know, because that's where the money goes for their streets. So if we take in less, then, we don't get as much work done. So.
Well, you've talked about being opposed to tax increases for seniors, of course, or fee increases for seniors. Do you think our tax rate is where it should be, or would you work to change it?
Well, the only thing I would change for our taxes right now, it's a subject is very in front of everybody right now, is our police force. I mean, I'd be in favor myself to take a hit on my taxes just enough for where we could get a few more officers on the streets.
Okay.
And that I would be willing to do. I mean,
now that kind of ties in with my next question. Really, I want to know what you would do about the crime problem we have in our town, which is getting ridiculous if we have a Christian minister getting killed in his own church.
Yeah, yes, it
on
is.
his own church grounds.
Yes.
What would you do about that?
Well, that's why I just said I'd like to see more officers on the streets.
All right. Well, and you would be willing to raise taxes
for more officers? Yeah, not a lot, but just enough to where we could afford 2 or 3 more officers, and I think people would understand that tax rate.
Are you in favor of the speed camera cars for? They support.
Well, I know you're not, but
I'm not, and they do support. We have them.
Yeah.
It took me long enough to wrench the truth from the city staff.
Yes,
and the mayor,
I know it pays. It pays.
But they have the cameras out there mainly to pay for 2 extra police officers.
Right. Also, their parking meter fund
and
too.
their parking meter fund too.
See, now what upsets me is the parking meter fund was strictly supposed to be going to the parking lots downtown. You know, repaving.
And where's it going now? I'm not too crazy. I know a lot of downtown merchants are not crazy about those.
No, I know, and I'm.
As a matter of fact, every city council candidate the other night at the forum, including you, were opposed to parking meters.
Well, if you got to remember, I've been opposed to them from day one. If you remember, they wanted to put more parking meters out. And we went down to City Hall. We had signatures of over 900 people. Mm-hmm. We did not want any more parking meters. We wanted them out of there.
Right.
Because it's deterring people from going downtown. You know, I go, very seldom you ever see me put money in a parking meter. I mean, I'll walk 2 or 3 blocks for it. But it's just the idea that I have to pay a parking meter. And you got to stop and think, you and I own the streets, right?
That's right. And we own the government.
Right.
Especially local government.
Yeah. So why are we paying for parking meters? We own those streets. That's our to me, that's double dipping. But you know,
well, we're paying for upkeep, is the way I look at it, and that's responsible. But I don't think it should be done through a parking meter fund.
No, it shouldn't.
I don't think it should be done through. And don't try to put any in front of John Daniels Pharmacy down there either. There will be trouble.
Well, John was with me in that issue.
Oh yeah. Oh, was he ever?
Last time.
Anyway, our guest has been Richard Higgins, who is running for Ward 3 City Councilman. Thanks for being here, Richard.
I appreciate you having me in here, Mike.
Not a problem at all. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. You're listening to KVFD in Fort Dodge.
I mean, we're done already.
I'm afraid we are.
Jeez,
I could have gone on for some more.
I couldn't even got my speech out, what I wanted to say.
I'll have you back.
Okay.
I'll have you back.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
From tuning an engine to replacing a fuse, you can learn it all under the hood. Heard every Saturday afternoon from 2 till 4 on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400 KVFD, Fort Dodge.
A formal vote on impeachment. I'm Pam Puso, Fox News. President Trump has called the impeachment investigation illegitimate, but that could change. Fox's Jared Halpern is live on Capitol Hill.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says a vote this week will eliminate any doubt about the impeachment inquiry and counter claims of illegitimacy from the White House. A resolution expected to hit the floor Thursday would lay out procedures for public hearings and transferring evidence to the Judiciary Committee. There is no constitutional requirement for a vote to begin an impeachment process, though Republicans have pointed to such moves during the Nixon and Clinton proceedings. A former National Security Council official was a no-show for testimony today. Pam.
Thanks, Jared. Manhunt over in Texas. Police in Greenville catching up with a man they believe opened fire at an off-campus college party, killing 2.
The suspect, Brandon Ray Gonzalez, 23 years of age, from Greenville, Texas, was taken into custody this morning and charged with capital murder.
Hunt County Sheriff Randy Meeks, 12 other people were hurt. It was an early morning for thousands of people in Southern California after a wildfire erupted in Los Angeles. Meantime, in Northern California,
the Kincaid fire is scorching its way through Sonoma County, fueled by this weekend's powerful winds, topping 100 miles per hour at times. Containment actually dropped because of the increase in size.
That's Fox's Claudia Cowan. Electricity is turned off to millions. The power is still out to thousands of people from Mississippi to Tennessee. Cleanup continuing from the remnants of Tropical Storm Olga. Wall Street setting a record. The Dow is up 133 points. The S&P adding 17 to close at an all-time high. America's listening to Fox News.
If you know the value of good machines, then it's high time we got together. We're Bailey Industrial, builders of metal and woodworking equipment. Hard-working machines for hard-working people. We stand behind our equipment and make sure our equipment stands behind you with the after-sales support you need to keep your shop running smoothly, which means making sure you have what you need when you need it, typically shipping within 72 hours or less. So whether you're a fabricator or manufacturer of metal or wood products, go to 920machine.com and we'll send you a catalog. Over 400 pages of what you love most, machines. So whatever you're looking to build or manufacture, do it with Bailey Industrial, the company you can trust to give you the equipment and service you can rely on. Because if it's worth doing right, it's only right to do it with Bailey. Get the Machine Lover's Dream catalog free by calling 920-MACHINE or go to 920machine.com. Get your free catalog while they last at 920machine.com.
The U.S. military on a roll when it comes to tracking down the leaders of ISIS.
A day after the president announced that the founder and leader of ISIS had been killed on a U.S. mission in northwest Syria, a senior State Department official confirms that ISIS spokesman Abu Hassan al-Muhajir has also been killed. Al-Muhajir was considered a number 2 to Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi and a potential successor. Fox News is told that al-Muhajir was killed in Aleppo province in a separate attack by U.S. forces very close to the Euphrates River. At the White House, John Decker, Fox News.
A guilty plea to a deadly shooting in Maryland.
Jared Ramos changed his plea from not guilty, but is asking for a trial to determine if he was not criminally responsible by reason of insanity. In June of 2018, Ramos walked into the Capitol Gazette in Annapolis and opened fire, killing 5 staffers.
Fox's Gernal Scott, in acceptance of the plea, takes the case to proceedings that will determine Ramos's mental state. A major pharmacy chain is making changes in the hopes of drumming up more business.
Walgreens will be closing nearly 40% of small clinics in its stores as the drugstore chain looks to cut cost and shift to other businesses that it believes will attract more customers. Instead, Walgreens will focus more on testing primary care clinics, which offer more extensive care at some of its stores in Kansas City and Houston.
Fox's Hillary Barsky. Walgreens is also working to improve its food selection. More tricks than treats for a man who dressed up as President Trump and showed up at a haunted house attraction in Florida. Police in Naples say the man was punched in the face by a 14-year-old girl who could now face a misdemeanor battery charge. Authorities say the girl's friends recorded the incident. I'm Pam Puso, and this is Fox News.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News update, I'm Rob Jones. A Webster City man who was arrested in Hancock County for a stolen gun last year has now been given a federal prison sentence. 26-year-old Eric Dunn was stopped December 17th of last year in Hancock County. During the traffic stop, officers found 2 loaded handguns behind the driver's seat, one of which was reported stolen. Dunn recently pleaded guilty to a charge of being a felon in possession of a firearm. He was sentenced to a 7-year prison term that will be followed by 3 years of supervised release. Democratic 4th District congressional candidate J.D. Scholten has announced the second leg of his Don't Forget About Us tour. During the tour, Scholten will hold town hall meetings in towns with populations of under 1,000 people around the 4th District. Scholten announced that he will be making several stops in the local area Those stops will be today. The first at the VFW post 5240 in Dakota City at 5 p.m. and then a 7:15 start for an event at the Lehigh Community Center. Tomorrow, he will hold 2 additional meetings, one in Pomeroy at 501 Park Avenue starting at 5 p.m., and then one at the Center in Early at 7 p.m. In high school football from Friday, the Fort Dodge Dodgers a winner, 21-17 over Marshalltown. Dodgers now 6-3 on the year. With the win, they punched their ticket to the playoffs. The Dodgers trailed 3-0 after fumbling the opening kickoff. They would lead 14-3 at the half, thanks to a pair of touchdowns in the second quarter. In the second half, they would lead the game 14-10 when this happened.
Marshalltown with the ball here. They throw it. It's intercepted. Intercepted by Halligan. He's going to take it to the house. Touchdown, Dodgers. Shane Halligan. He's got a reservation for 6, and the Dodgers have a 2-score lead.
With the win, Coach Matt Miller becomes the all-time winningest coach in Dodger football history. The Dodgers now are in the playoffs. They'll play Friday night at Cedar Rapids Kennedy. The South Central Calhoun Titans a winner on 105-9 The Beach. They won 34-0 over Pocahontas. They finish the regular season unbeaten and win the district title with the win. They'll host a first-round playoff game on Friday, taking on Mount Ayr. Manson Northwest Webster a winner over St. Edmund, 36-0. Quarterback Austin Anlicker the story for Manson Northwest Webster, 3 total touchdowns in the game. For a complete list of the area playoff qualifiers and a look at their matchup on Friday, go to our website at yourfortdodge.com. For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
Here's the AM 1400 KVFD weatherology forecast. Highs level off around 39 this afternoon under cloudy skies. Winds out of the northwest 5 to 10 miles per hour. Chance for snow tonight. Lows level off around 23. Partly cloudy skies. Sunshine mixed with clouds at times again. Tomorrow, high temperatures reach up to 41. About an inch of snow tonight through Wednesday night. From the Weatherology Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki. Currently, it's 36.
Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Alpha Media presents Elvis. That's right, Elvis is back. Alpha Media is proud to present the Elvis Rock and Remember Tribute Christmas Show with Joseph Hall. This special night of Christmas magic with Elvis will be Friday night, December 6th in the Cardiff Center at Fort Frenzy. Doors open at 5:30 and the Elvis Rock and Remember Tribute Christmas Show starts at 7. Tickets are $20 in advance or $25 at the door. Get your tickets now at Hy-Vee Fort Dodge, the Iowa Outdoor Store, Fort Frenzy, or get them at our Alpha Media Studios. Bring the whole family to see this tribute to the King of Rock and Roll and enjoy this amazing Christmas show. The Elvis Rock and Remember Tribute Christmas Show is brought to you in part by United Bank of Iowa in Fort Dodge, Pocahontas, Rolfe, and Rockwell City, Advanced Heating and Cooling of Fort Dodge, North Central Iowa Supply and Hardware Hank of Humboldt, and Riley Armstrong Plumbing and Heating. The Elvis Rock and Remember Tribute Christmas Show is an Alpha Media event.
Michael Devine, the mayor of Manville.
It's a fancy title for a part-time job.
Michael Devine at AM 1400 KVFD.
This week on the Iowa Watch Connection.
They may have crop insurance. Crop insurance doesn't cover everything.
Effects of the massive spring flooding in Iowa continue to be seen.
We're always stretched thin. One of the things that results from that is that people are not seen often enough.
Systemic strains are even more challenging now.
I don't know how to recruit therapists. It's an ongoing problem.
Seeking help in disaster-stricken areas. Our topic this week.
The Iowa Watch Connection is presented by the Iowa Center for Public Affairs Journalism, online at iowawatch.org. Here is Jeff Stein.
The images seen of spring flooding in western Iowa were amazing and easily depicted a devastating situation. That's what we could see, but what about the residual impact of the flooding in areas that could not be seen? Iowa Watch reporter Kelly Page has our report.
I knew some Iowans report having problems accessing mental health care. I also thought about the effects flooding this year, especially along the Missouri and Mississippi rivers, could have on farmers, not just economically, but mentally as well. I wondered, does Iowa have mental health care resources in these flooded regions to address the needs of farmers? A population researchers suggest is already at risk when mental health conditions emerge, especially when you consider a stigma attached to seeking help that is strong among farmers. More than a dozen mental health care experts I spoke with over 2 months told me they were concerned that there are not enough mental health care professionals in Iowa to treat farmers. Moreover, they said they expected an increasing need for care because of the floods. But there's another problem. Many mental health care professionals do not want to work in a rural area, for reasons ranging from a lack of resources to a perceived lack of cultural opportunities.
I don't know how to recruit therapists.
That's Susan Ecker, director of Waubonsie Mental Health Clinic, which has locations in Fremont, Page, and Montgomery counties in southwestern Iowa. Those are some of the counties hit hardest by flooding earlier this year.
It's an ongoing problem recruiting therapists to our communities in the absence of disaster and crisis. But when you have natural disasters such as this flooding, it just makes it even more, underscores it even more that we've got to come up with some way, some programs like what we once had that entices and encourages therapists to consider coming to rural communities. And I think of the therapists that I employ, they grew up here. This is home to them. But I think often when somebody grows up in an urban area, there's lots of opportunities there, and there's really no incentive for them to relocate here.
The incentives Ecker mentioned are funding from the National Health Service Corps, which provides student loan forgiveness and grants as part of their program to bring health care to rural areas. Ecker said Waubonsie stopped receiving those benefits after her area's mental health care shortage area rating, determined by the U.S. Health Resources and Services Administration, showed improvement. Many areas of Iowa hit by flooding receive benefits from the National Health Service Corps, however. In all, 50 of the 59 Iowa counties designated as disaster areas because of flooding this year also have been designated by the Health Resources and Services Administration as having inadequate mental health care. It is important to note also that shortages exist throughout the state. 86 of Iowa's 99 total counties are designated mental health professional shortage areas. However, even in clinics that receive help from the National Health Services Corps, therapists told me it did not solve all of their problems.
We're always stretched thin. So one of the things that results from that is that people are not seen often enough.
That's Alicia Doherty. She is a clinical supervisor at Plains Area Mental Health Center, which covers a wide patch of northwest Iowa. Aside from Service Corps funding, she said Plains Area Mental Health Center offers employment benefits, such as numerous health insurance policy options, and pay that is 7% higher than the state average. She said she still feels the clinics are constantly short-handed.
I'm going to be honest. I really feel like our education doesn't prepare us for what it's really like to work in this field. And so, sometimes we get people in here who, after a few weeks, decide that they don't even want to work in this field after they've gotten, 2 to 3 years of education and, $60,000 to $100,000 worth of student loans. Because a college's goal really is to matriculate, is to get people, through their program. They advertise those rates, but, when people get out into the reality of working in community mental health with lots and lots of barriers, it's a completely different experience. So, a lot of models are set up, a lot of treatment models and, community models are set up for urban areas. I would say most of them. to be honest, are set up for urban areas, and then we try to implement them in rural Iowa because they have such good outcomes, and then you're dealing with transportation, you're dealing with just lack of resources. You know, when I lived in the city, it was just a matter of figuring out what resource someone needed and plugging them in. Out here, they just don't exist. You know, so that's really difficult for a clinician who's only supposed to be treating someone's symptoms, and in the end, they ended up also being a case manager.
The result for patients is high turnover rates, which can have negative effects on treatment.
I have actually 2 clients on my caseload right now who saw their previous therapist. One of them saw her for 9 years, the other one saw her for 13 years, who were honestly traumatized by having to start seeing me. So it was a major setback for their treatment.
Pat Sheldon, whose family has been farming near the small town of Percival in the southwestern corner of Iowa for 4 generations, has been working continuously to maintain the 2,500 acres of farmland owned by him, his father, his brothers, and his son. Sheldon also is the president of the Benton, Washington Levee District, which has become a demanding position after multiple levees breached in the flood. He said he is not seeking mental health care and deals with the stress of floods by spending time with friends and pushing forward, but he sees how many other farmers might need help right now.
So I'm been really busy. So, I mean, you just keep going. Adrenaline kicks in and away you go.
Despite the shortage of mental health care providers in these rural areas, especially for farmers, Mike Negg, the state's Agriculture and Land Stewardship Secretary, said he wants to understand these problems and help to the best of his ability. Here's Negg in an interview with me.
If there's lacking capacity or if there aren't resources available, we want to make sure that there are. So I guess I'm always wanting to understand more about those things, and then we'll help in any way that we can.
I'm Kelly Page for the Iowa Watch Connection.
And Iowa Watch reporter Kelly Page joins me now. The most fundamental question, Kelly, how did you come up with the idea for this series of extended reports?
Well, I was kind of aware that there were a lot of people in Iowa who had trouble accessing mental health care within the state. And I was also thinking about just all of the flooding that's been happening in the state just this year, and wondering how that would affect farmers and their mental health needs, if this was a triggering situation for them. So I just really wanted to figure out, like, if there were people who were concerned, and kind of like where the issues lay within the ability of Iowans to access mental health care, specifically farmers in rural areas right now.
As you did the reporting, what surprised you the most?
Well, what surprised me is that a lot of these issues, like, just get echoed across the state. There's definitely a shortage. There's a shortage that people feel. Most of the mental health care providers I talked to, all of them were aware of the shortage. I did talk to one who had found a way to kind of deal with it, or at least to expand services just by actively recruiting people to come work there. But everyone told me it's very hard to get mental health care providers to work in the state, in rural areas especially.
And that's even made worse by the fact that there's undue stress, if you will, on the mental health providers who are there. So it becomes a situation where not only are they at risk, these professionals, of absorbing the stress from the people they consult, but it also could put quite a stress on them as well.
Yes, exactly. I talked to one mental health care provider who was in an area that wasn't a flooded region. It was a mental health care professional shortage area. And she talked to me a lot about kind of the ethical dilemma she faces about, like, a lot of times people come to her, there's no easy place for her to refer them to. She can refer them usually to a nearby city. The clinics in those nearby cities are often, like, extremely booked as well, but also a lot of people don't have time to make that drive. They don't have resources to make that drive. If they're farmers, they might not have time to make that drive, or other professions too, but she mentioned farmers specifically. And yeah, she doesn't know what to do with that, because it's a decision that she said she has to make this decision often of, does she try to take on more clients or give the best care she can to the clients she already has? And she's just one person. Like, how does she deal with an ethical dilemma like that?
This is an extensive project that encompassed reporting from all areas of the state. How has this experience helped you be better able to conduct future in-depth reporting projects? In other words, what did you learn from just the nuts and bolts of putting all of this together?
I mean, I learned a lot, and a lot of it was the nuts and bolts. It was being able to take writing that, I kind of honed my writing skills up to this point in an academic context, and a lot of it was figuring out how to kind of transfer that to journalism. But also, it just made me believe in myself. I see what I've done, and I'm proud of it, and I'm ready to be a journalist now. And I'm so grateful for this experience on so many levels.
What do you hope people who read the stories at iowawatch.org or hear the radio program, what do you want them to take away knowing or feeling about the topic?
I guess just the fact that there's people who are expressing concern, and readers can do with that whatever they want. I think that it's just important to know that this problem exists, and I tried my best to kind of tap into reasons that this problem exists, that people, especially in rural areas, have a lot of trouble accessing mental health care in Iowa. I really just want to make that problem visible, and the fact that there are reasons for that problem.
Iowa Watch reporter Kelly Page, thanks. You can read a series of related reports Kelly prepared on this topic on our website, iowawatch.org. When we come back, we'll talk with a farmer and therapist who can relate to this situation at a variety of levels. That's next, when the Iowa Watch Connection continues.
The Iowa Watch Connection radio program is part of a statewide audience engagement project organized by the Iowa Center for Public Affairs Journalism, an independent, nonprofit, nonpartisan news organization. The center is dedicated to producing high-quality investigative and community affairs journalism in Iowa, while also training journalism students to do this work at a high ethical level. The center is found online at iowawatch.org.
Welcome back to the Iowa Watch Connection. I'm Jeff Stein. Mike Rossman is a farmer, therapist, and something of a spokesperson for farmer behavioral health care in western Iowa. From Harlan, Iowa, he says that even without flood conditions, behavioral health care often is financially inaccessible for farmers who are tentative about their insurance fees being affected by a formal diagnosis of mental illness. He spoke with Iowa Watch reporter Kelly Page about the effects the 2019 floods have had on farmers.
Agriculture in Iowa and in most of the rest of our country is going through perhaps the greatest recession economically that we've had since the 1980s. We're in our fifth year of expenses exceeding profits overall. So it's not surprising that there are many concerned people who are involved in agriculture and in allied industries. Many of Iowa's communities depend heavily on agriculture for their economic well-being. The old saying is that a dollar that a farmer spends turns over at a minimum 3 to 6 times within the local community. And so, agriculture and ag-related industries like ethanol production comprise the greatest source of Iowa's income. It's fortunate that our state budget does also have other types of income that are taxed, such as manufacturing of equipment that is used like office furniture, and we have a large insurance industry and investment industry in our state. So there are facets of our economy that are doing well, but not ag overall. That doesn't mean we're collapsing entirely. It just means that, profits are scanty.
And why do you think that is?
We know that it is due to a number of factors. One is overproduction globally. And I say globally because that's an important factor in farm trade these days. We can ship food so much cheaper than we could in times past. So there is overproduction globally of many major commodities such as corn, dairy, wheat, and other things, even pork in some situations. Now, it can be argued that, almost a fifth of the world has insufficient food, so it's just a problem of distribution. Mm-hmm. Well, that is partly true. But the countries that need the food have inadequate transportation systems, storage facilities, or their form of government is restricting the distribution of food to those who need it most as a kind of a political action in some of these countries. So it's a complex issue. That is, overproduction is a complex issue. In the long run, Iowa should fare fairly well in the production of food efficiently. We have a very efficient agricultural production system in the United States, and especially in the upper Midwest, where Iowa is. We can probably stand the competition from other countries that don't have as good soil or who don't have the transportation facilities that we have, although some of those now are imperiled too. And that is a small factor. We can't ship grain down the Mississippi and Missouri River drainages currently because the water's too high and they can't get through locks. So there's all of these issues that contribute to the financial problem. And then I would have to say also, our government policy currently has been turned topsy-turvy. We're not getting the kind of support that is needed to recover from the floods. We are depending too much on the Trump supplemental payments for crops, and people have such mixed feelings about them, and they're not available to everyone, like organic farmers and to many small farmers. So the smaller operators are struggling in many ways, unless they are organic food producers. The markets for organic food are increasing, as you probably know.
I was wondering, too, just like more specifically about how the current flooding is affecting farmer mental health in the state.
We know that approximately 1 million acres along the Missouri River basin on both sides of the Missouri River, starting up in South Dakota, the southeast part of South Dakota, all the way down to where it joins in with the Mississippi River. So we have all of these persons who are looking for some way in which to survive. They may have crop insurance, Crop insurance doesn't cover everything.
Mike Rossman of Harlan, Iowa, a farmer and therapist, discussing the effects of the 2019 flooding on farmers with Iowa Watch reporter Kelly Page. And again, you can read the full series of reports Kelly has prepared on this subject on our website, iowawatch.org. And that brings us to the close of this week's program. We're back again next week at this same time. In the meantime, you can connect with us online, iowawatch.org. Click on the Iowa Watch Connection tab at the top of the page to listen to all or part of this program again, for a list of stations that carry the program and more. iowawatch.org. Follow us on Twitter at Iowa Watch, and be sure to use the hashtag IAWatchConnection when commenting about the program. We're on Facebook too, facebook.com/Iowa Watch. And you can let us know your thoughts about this program or suggest ideas for future programs by email. The address is radio@iowawatch.org. The program is produced in the studios of News Talk 1540 KXCL, Waterloo, Cedar Falls, Cedar Rapids. I'm Jeff Stein. Thank you for joining us, and we hope you'll make the Iowa Watch Connection again next week.
The Iowa Watch Connection is a copyrighted presentation of the Iowa Center for Public Affairs Journalism, which is solely responsible for its content. For more information about the center, including how you can contribute so high-quality investigative and community affairs journalism and student training can continue, go online, iowawatch.org.
Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
433.
Farming is a competitive business. You need to be tough and smart, and you need to have equipment that you can rely on, which is why farmers entrust their grain handling to Brandt products, available at Ziegler Ag Equipment, like the XR grain carts, featuring a high-capacity 20-inch discharge auger that unloads up to 620 bushels per minute, making unloading quick and effective. Talk to your Ziegler sales rep about the full line of augers, belts, carts, and vacs, because if you want to be number one, get yourself some worry-free performance from Brandt and lead the field.
Ready to go custom with window coverings, bedding, rugs, and more? Call Budget Blinds and get happy. We bring the showroom to your home with dozens of choices in colors, patterns, and textures. All you do is tell us what you love, then we make it happen. Choose custom drapes and pillows and colors and patterns you can customize to your own personal style. Budget Blinds has luxurious bedding and rugs too. Your choice of shapes, sizes, and colors. And Budget Blinds can even do custom color matching, designing blinds and shutters that coordinate with your walls, furniture, bedding, and other accessories in your room. Budget Blinds does it all for you. And that's what we mean when we say we have style and service for every budget. Go custom, get happy. Let us bring the showroom to your home. To get your free in-home consultation, just go online to budgetblinds.com or call 855-BUDGET-BLINDS. That's 855-BUDGET-BLINDS. Go custom, get happy. At participating independently owned and operated franchises only. Ask for details.
Hi, I'm Raymond Denon, Vice President of Optima Tax Relief. If you're in debt to the IRS, there's a lot you need to know. Starting with rule number 1, don't mess with the IRS. They can garnish your paycheck, levy your bank accounts, even take your home or business. That's all true. But it's also true that there's a way out. It's called the Fresh Start Initiative. It's one of the biggest breaks the IRS has ever offered. If you qualify, you could save thousands, even tens of thousands. Nobody knows this program like us, the experts at Optima Tax Relief. We have an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau, and we've resolved over $500 million in tax debt for our clients. We'll stand between you and the IRS and fight to get you the best deal possible. Don't mess with the IRS. For tax help you need, for tax help you can trust, call Optima for a free consultation.
Call 800-386-9945. 800-386-9945. 800-386-9945.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
I'm Charles Payne, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Stocks finishing in the green with the S&P 500 closing at a record high as corporate earnings continue to top expectations, and investors are optimistic about a U.S.-China trade deal. With the Dow rising 133 points, the Nasdaq up 83, S&P 500 up 17. And shares of Beyond Meat falling after hours despite an earnings report that showed the company's first quarterly profit in its history. Beyond Meat also increasing its annual revenue forecast for the second consecutive quarter. However, it faces increased competition from traditional food food companies. But the maker of plant-based meats continues to ink deals with restaurant chains. And Alphabet reporting earnings missing Wall Street expectations, hit by aggressive spending by its Google unit. Its shares are down 1% in after-hours trading. The company has reportedly made an offer to acquire smartwatch company Fitbit. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Hillary Barsky, invested in you.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans. 30% of Americans who are planning home improvements of $5,000 or more will pay for those renovations with a high-interest credit card. That may not be a great idea. A better idea may be to take cash out of your home with a Quicken Loans 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. The rate today on our 30-year fixed-rate mortgage is 3.99%, APR 4.08%. Call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
Rate subject to change. Pay 1.25% fee to receive this discounted rate. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss the bride.
Time to throw the bird seed.
Watch out for the seagulls!
Oh, my head! Are you okay?
United Healthcare helps connect you to care whenever you need it, like video chatting with a doctor right from your phone.
So I don't need stitches?
Nope, just put some antibiotic cream on it.
Great, thank you, doctor.
United Healthcare. Health plan benefits may vary.
The value of your tractor is only as good as the dealer support it's backed by. And at Ziegler Ag Equipment, we're behind you every acre of the way. We don't just give you a product or a service, we give you our word. And we stand behind the brands we carry. Dependable brands like Fendt, Challenger, Rogator, Interrogator, Massey Ferguson, and more. For information on all our products and service offerings, work with your Ziegler Ag sales rep or visit us online at ZIEGLERAG.com to see our inventory of new and used machinery.
This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice for Dodge 438. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South in Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. Sorry to say that Jack Wiederholt of Fort Dodge has died at the age of 64. Jack is a great guy. And he certainly helped out a lot of veterans in our area, including me. Jack Wiederholt, Fort Dodge, has passed away. Memorials may be left to the discretion of the family. Obituaries this hour brought to you by the historic Bruce Funeral Home at 923 First Avenue South in Fort Dodge. You may contact the historic Bruce Funeral Home by calling 515-576-5117 or online at www.brucesfuneralhome.com. This is AM 1400 KVFD.
Staples is more than a place you go to buy a new PC. It's where an associate helped me find the latest tech I needed to work smarter, not harder. Where I got a protection plan plus 24/7 tech support that keeps me connected. And where I increased my productivity for a lot less than what I thought I'd spend.
Right now at Staples, you can save up to $300 on the latest PCs. Staples, for your business tech and beyond. In-store only. Ends 11/2/19 while supplies last. Exclusions apply. Staples is more than a place you go to buy a printer.
It's where an associate showed me the printer that works best for my business.
Like the all-new HP LaserJet Pro 400 printers with advanced wireless and security. And they're easy to set up.
I need all of that.
Right now at Staples, get up to $200 off the HP LaserJet Pro 400 series.
The best printers at great prices.
Staples, for your business tech and beyond. In-store only. Ends 11/16/19. See associate or staples.com/HP400 series for details.
Winter is great for some things, like snow skiing or ice fishing, and bad for others, like driving or roofing your house. Did you know if you roof in the winter, it won't seal right? No matter what that so-called professional roofer says, never let him put a new roof on in the winter. Instead, call Hahn Roofing right now. They'll come check out your roof and put you on the top of their list for their first roofing project in the spring. Call Hahn Roofing at 712-262-8923. That's 712-262-8923. Hahn Roofing, an Owens Corning Platinum contractor.
Michael Devine, standing for Medicare and Social Security. After a lifetime of work, you deserve
it. This is AM 1400
KVFD.
For Dodge, I'm Michael Devine, and of course, we're going to tell the truth, make it matter, and we're never going to be boring. Joining us in that effort again today is Dr. Dean Stanzel, an economist with Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. Hi, Dean.
Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm great. Please, Dr. Stanzel is a member of the O'Neill Center at SMU. Please explain the O'Neill Center.
Oh, sure. The O'Neill
O'Neill Center for Global Markets and Freedom is in the Cox Business School at SMU in Dallas, and it was established by one of our alums, William O'Neill, who also is the founder of Investors Business Daily newspaper. And we study the impact of competitive market forces on freedom and prosperity in the global economy. Our website is o'neillcenter.org. That's spelled O-N-E-I-L.
Dr. Stanzel, researcher that he is, always provides us with plenty of material here to talk about, and today is no exception. Thank God for that, because I usually show up at the last second and just turn on the microphone.
That's a fun day.
And I had a great weekend. I hope you did too.
Yeah.
But we're having a bit of a broadband controversy here in our town, and of course the people who want to stay with current broadband represent a rather large telecom company by the name of Mediacom. There are others who would like to see Mediacom get a little bit of competition in the form of a city-owned broadband. This has given rise to one of the more ridiculous phrases I've heard recently, government-owned broadband. Now, no doubt, government does own some broadband, and they use it for purposes that governments everywhere need to use it for. But in this case, it's citizens who are dissatisfied with a franchise agent who has no competition, and we'd like a little competition, believing, as you do, Dr. Stanzel, at least I believe you do, that competition always improves things. So we are trying to give Mediacom some competition. We're not trying to kick Mediacom out of town or anything like that. And yes, this would be the city taxpayers probably sponsoring competition to a private business, but this business, again, has no competition due to a state ruling from a few years ago. So it's this. We're hardly dealing with free form, real down to earth free market economics here. We're dealing with two rather large, at least one large competitor, and there is fear in our town that if city-owned broadband does not pan out, that the taxpayers will be somehow hit with a bill. Dr. Stanzel has sent me a piece from Reason Foundation, and it's called "Reducing Red Tape Would Expand Rural Access to High-Speed Broadband." Now, this is very interesting, something I haven't thought of in the past. And could you explain this piece to us, Dr. Stanzel?
Yeah, sure. I'd like to start off on a more basic level, because just based on what you posted on your Facebook about this issue, I think there's some important contributions that just the basic economics can make to this discussion. So what economic theory tends to, what most economists tend to agree is that things that we call public goods, and I'll define that briefly here in a minute. Public goods are things that most economists agree that private markets may not provide efficiently or at all. So there needs to be some sort of community, voluntary, or some sort of approach to come together and make those goods be provided. So public goods have two characteristics. I'll try not to get too far into the weeds here. Number one, they're non-rival. Okay, it just means that when you consume it, there's just as much left for me. Like one of your listeners turns on their radio, well, there's just as much signal left for the other listeners that have it turned on at the same time. So that's non-rival, and that's very unusual if you think about most things we consume. Most things aren't like that. Most things are rival. If you go to the store and buy the last bag of Cheetos, well, I'll be very angry because I go and there's no Cheetos left. Right? So most things are rival. All right, so you've got non-rival and cable TV, Wi-Fi, over-the-air radio signals. These are examples of goods that are non-rival. The second one is the more problematic one. That's called non-excludable, meaning that it's difficult or at least very costly to exclude non-payers from consuming it. Now, if you think back 100 years ago to when radio first became a kind of a viable commercial entity, in a sense, radio was non-excludable. It would have been very difficult 100 years ago to charge people a price to listen to your radio show. And even today, you could argue that with radio signals, well, while it's not impossible, right, we have satellite subscription radio, those guys were losing money, and one of them had to buy the other one out in order to be profitable. So I would argue that it's difficult for radio broadcasters to charge a price for their product. But some brilliant entrepreneur 100 years ago or whenever it was figured out how to make it happen. And you know very well what the answer is. They figured out we can charge local businesses to provide commercials on our radio station, basically buying access to the ears of our listeners, and that then enables the radio broadcaster to cover their costs, which they couldn't cover by charging the customers directly.
Certainly.
And so radio, in a sense, you could say is a public good, but commercial industry figured out how to provide it. But when it comes to cable TV or Wi-Fi, that's not difficult to charge access for. It's not difficult to exclude non-payers from consuming. And so it doesn't really fit the category of a public good, which traditionally is where economics would say, okay, well, maybe government has a role here. So my broader point is that I don't think government has a role here. And when you think about it, and I know you believe in pretty small government, if you think about what are the list of things that you think we should have to pay taxes to provide and to allow government to have authority over, I wouldn't think this would be very far up the list for most people.
Well,
and so I think it's a issue of whether this is a legitimate area for government activity, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you for your input on that, because we got a lot to get to here. I will say that the Internet has become indispensable, as you know. And it will continue to play a larger part in our lives. So as far as a public utility, that's kind of what we're thinking, that we need in our rural area, and we don't have it now, faster and reliable Internet. If we intend to be a growing area, and I'll spare you all the details, but we have reason to believe that other companies will come here, ag-related businesses, and they require these sorts of services. Now, we do have a faster type of Internet that's available to businesses now. But really, what we have is little towns in our area, like 400, population of 400, have fiber optics, and we don't. We don't. All we have is a line to the house and not fiber optics. And it's just caused too many problems. But anyway, that's our thinking anyway on public utility.
So on the reason article you mentioned just briefly, that there are some FCC restrictions on the installation of what they call small cells, which are these backpack-sized units that are a lot more flexible than the traditional tall towers. And there's just some restrictions on where those can be installed and a review process and that sort of thing that tends to result in no change to the initial proposal because these things are so small, no one really has any objections. And so there are some things like that could be gotten out of the way that would make it a much quicker process for these things to be rolled out and to expand access, in particular in the rural, less populated areas like you're talking about.
All right. Dr. Dean Stansel is our guest. He is an economist from Southern Methodist University and a libertarian. Let's talk a couple of your favorite people here, Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. Bernie especially. And I always like an honest man. And Bernie's an honest man as far as I'm concerned. He is talking about Medicare for all, and he is naming what he thinks is the cost, $3 trillion. Now, Elizabeth Warren is tap dancing, frankly. She hasn't revealed the cost of her program. It's kind of like, well, let's pass it, and then I'll tell you about what it costs later. You know? I don't think we're going to do that, so Elizabeth is going to have to come clean sooner or later. In this Philadelphia Inquirer article, the columnist states that there's no such thing as universal health care. What do we have in the European countries then if we don't have universal health care?
Yeah, I have a feeling they didn't write the headline. Sometimes the headline gets a little misleading in some ways. I think what they're playing on the term "there's no such thing as a free lunch," so there's no such thing as free universal health care. And they go through in this article, and this is by a couple economists